Peace and respect to you all. Welcome to Demolished Doctrine, the guy who ain't smart enough to adjust his green screen before he starts a show.
It's like forgetting to unclick mute. Who would do that?
I don't know anybody.
How dare you?
All right.
That was a self joke. Do you do that as well, Mark? I think we all do.
Oh yeah, everybody does that.
I really wanted to yell out everybody's name for some reason. I don't know.
This is the thing, Mark, and maybe this will help Deconverted Lobster Man as well. There is a function in OBS where you can set the settings per scene. So when you change to a scene, you don't need to unmute. Depending on what scene you're on, you can set your audio settings preset.
Oh.
I don't like that, though.
I don't know what the bleep he just said, but okay.
You're using OBS. You just said "Gur Pig" on.
Okay.
Okay. Back to enough about me. Let's talk about you. What does everyone think of me?
Well,
you're looking very dapper tonight. I gotta say, you're looking very smart, man. I'm impressed.
I do have a small collection of waistcoats, which is not broke 10 yet, but getting quite close to there. My general job is just dirty and ripped clothes and muck, and all the rest of it, man. So when I like to dress up, I like to dress up. I like to make an effort. And this thing, I had it in the show. I was showing Savage it the other day. I think it was. I have it hanging in the hall. But yeah. Jesus just beat the waistcoat. Take my thunder. Stop stealing my thunder.
Sweetheart. Yeah, Sammy's stealing the show over here.
You got him, Sammy. You got him.
I agree, Regios. I was thinking of fedora, not necessarily a top hat.
Yes,
fedora.
That's the funniest thing I've ever seen.
He ran away. He ran away in disgust and embarrassment.
He's holding you. It's so funny.
He's just MathPig's AFK right now.
Okay, so
Uncle Beck loves fedoras. See, a fedora is a nice hat. Reggio's also said it would work. Yeah, MathPig, I think you'd look good in a fedora. He seems to think that he wouldn't, but he's run away now, so.
Okay.
Thank
you for taking that off. I couldn't stop laughing. Oh my god.
It was great. So I love it. Oh!
Hold on. I'll turn this off. You can see
I want to give Deconverted a chance to shout out everyone's name because that's what he's inclined to do. Go ahead if you like.
All right. Richard, Demolished Doctrine, Beast of the Mark, MathPig, 420 Atheist, Minnow, and Converted Man. Okay, good night, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Lovely show, Deconverted. Have a great night.
Yeah.
What do you think?
It doesn't get any better after that. It all goes downhill.
We might as well quit.
That's it. We've reached the peak, everybody. Sorry.
Did I steal my thunder back from Jesus with the hat? No.
Yeah, that saved us from our.
That's
sins.
actually a hat. That's a wee fedora that an Egyptian guy doing taxi driving in Florida when I went on holiday 11 years ago. Us being the Irish.
Can you say "wee fedora" again? Can you just say "wee fedora" again?
Would you like me to? To me, wee fedora.
Nice.
I tell you, the hat and the waistcoat is a dangerous combination.
A little known fact: MathPig is actually on a Cameo now. For a fee, he'll say whatever you want him to say. So,
well,
yeah.
I've got would you like a black waistcoat, a blue waistcoat, a grey waistcoat? I get a little obsessed with me waistcoats. I do.
You need a waistcoat that looks like Minnow's jumper that she's wearing now.
Damn.
Could you imagine?
Okay, I wanted to. I just wanted to clarify, Richard.
Oh, Oh, that makes my forehead look huge, but makes me feel more comfortable. But look how big my forehead is. I need a slightly
Okay.
bigger fedora,
Oh,
honey.
come on, it's fine. What are
Do
you
I need to?
talking
Do I
about?
need to
Get out of
balance?
here.
I want to serve everyone equally. Do I need to balance microphones and volumes? Because it seems like MathPig, you can't hear when Deconverted Man speaks, or am I wrong?
Oh no, I can hear Deconverted Man except when
Okay.
he's muted. I just ignore
Yeah,
him.
no, that,
Yeah, he just doesn't
that's
care. He
that's
just doesn't
fine.
give a shit.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm used to it. Is he still mad at me because I forgot to do the thing or whatever it was? I don't remember anymore. But Richard, okay, because I was trying to follow along with your conversation with MP there,
Yes, sir.
and I heard something, and I just want to know your particular claim so that I'm not, nobody is straw manning you. I don't want to straw man you, whatever. So can you explain, where the Bible, like the whole Bible or just parts of the Bible, come from? What exactly or was it certain? What is the claim? Because it was like Bible, something to do with aliens that are human. And I'm like, well, there's some missing information. So could you clarify all that for me and the audience, please?
I'll attempt to. In an internal critique of the Bible, and not to complicate it, amongst several other stories and several other cultures, some much more ancient than the Bible, is the overall idea that what it's claiming about itself is that it's not authored or written by people on this earth at all. That it's written from their class 4 Kardashev civilization, that they distribute the stories that already agree with established cultures to adhere to that culture's societal norms and value systems, so that they say the same thing in culturally adherent ways. And what they are is naturally evolving Homo sapiens sapien without the genetic restriction. So they're fully coding. They 100% code where we're missing chunks. And they tell it in fairy tale form so that we can doubt it, literally, so that we can have arguments. So it's not a sure thing. Because if it were a sure thing that was clear and understandable and didn't need interpretation, then we wouldn't have, unless we have some kind of mental challenges, we wouldn't have any doubts about it, no arguments about it, and then we're just sitting here killing time, which it would be a horrible situation. So what they're claiming that they do is that they take barren planets, they put the necessary life forms in the correct order at the correct time scales to transform the planet so that we can absolutely ruin it with nuclear waste and carbon emissions and all that, and then essentially pull our ass out of the fire that we created right before we kill ourselves.
Okay. Now, and something from a long time ago that I never got a clarification on was how you got this interpretation of the various verses that you translated. Like at the time, you didn't say it was God. You weren't really clear with what it was. So is it these aliens that gave you that insight, or do you still not have a specific claim to where the insight came from regarding the David and Goliath thing?
Well, the idea is literally alien to the planet. I didn't care to try to justify these things, and I've never heard of this anywhere. and it came with I mean, a lot of exactness and a lot of repercussions.
Right.
So where did it come from?
So do you
you said it came, but where did it come from? Sorry.
Literally, a movie played in my head that I could not make stop, and I wanted it to stop, and it was very try to imagine, like, or if anyone's actually experienced night terrors, where you're alert mentally and you can't do anything about what's going on with you.
But am I right in that you're not saying that you have any particular claim to where that movie came from, or is it that you think that it might be those aliens, or you don't have any position? I just want to understand.
Okay, so I really spent a lot of time looking into disproving and justifying.
Mm-hmm.
Is Brojo back demolished? Sorry,
right, but I'm just asking, like, where do you think do you have a position of where you think this movie came from, or no?
I have 6 positions there full, and I don't see Brojo waiting.
Okay.
Okay, and deconverted man, if you could say that again, because I was distracted. I'm sorry.
That you know, when I talked to you about the David and Goliath translation, at the time you weren't saying where that movie came from. So do you now have an idea of where that came from? Like, is it the aliens, or do you still not know, or don't want to make any claim about where it came from?
I can only talk about how information works. I can't say that I could prove something like it's angels. Okay, I can colloquially call them angels. Okay, and that seems to work with no defeaters within the total framework.
Okay,
but the only thing I can show is that it meets the requirements of communication.
Ow.
Yeah.
It meets the requirements of communication, that there was information that is valid in reality, plausible in logic, consistent within its, how we say, okay, this is likely, this is,
okay.
It's better than impossible.
All right.
Would I be understanding you, Richard, if I said you believe prayer is the way that a way that we can receive information?
Yes, from each other or other beings with the same ability.
Yes, and that's essentially the mechanism with which you received this.
Yeah, perceived in the first person experience.
And then I also heard you mention to MathPig, you have at least one valid and sound argument. Could you link me to a written and or video version of any one valid and sound argument that you happen to have for? It doesn't matter what it is. It's just,
Well, a lot of what I do and what I was referring to there is against traditional Christianity. That's the argument.
Oh yeah. Well,
if you want that, I'm happy to empower you with that, so you can argue with Christians this exact point.
Yeah, I'd be interested in that as well. I thought you were referring to things that you were promoting, but yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to analyze that as well. It'd be interesting.
I think it's so simple you don't need to write it down. It's just evidently true and obvious.
Give us a rundown.
That the internal claim of the Bible is that God is creator, right? And that we are part of the creation, and that we are not finished but still being worked with. And since work definitionally is a defeater for rest, those are mutually exclusive ideas, then God can't be resting from his creation because we're not complete. Thereby, there's no Sabbath of God yet. So that there's no Sabbath day.
I don't think that work and rest are mutually exclusive, I guess. I don't know. But why can't God take a Sabbath and then work later? Like, who says you can't rest and then work later?
Because they maintain that God works with man continuously since Adam.
Well, then it's a defeater for that particular belief
Yes.
in Christianity, not for Christianity itself.
Yeah, it's not that big, but that's a pretty universal idea in Christianity.
Okay.
All right. Okay. All right. That's all I was curious about for now. Thanks for everybody's time, and I'll make myself scarce because you know, unless there's logic to analyze, then I'll do that. But you know,
Menno, if you could please, I may get this wrong. The main August Lobster Festival. Guy wrote a thing about it. You need to listen till it, Deconverted Man. You will absolutely love it. Minnow, can you please help me out with
Consider the Lobster.
I love it already.
What is it? Foster. What is it? Anyway, consider the Lobster. You'll find it.
I think I've
Here's
heard of
an
that
interesting.
before.
David Foster Wallace is the one I was thinking.
Here's an interesting thing about lobsters. If somebody didn't know this, if it wasn't for soft shell collapse causing them, irreparable damage, they're eternal beings.
They're immortal.
Not immortal. They can be killed.
Yes. We had this conversation, Sammy. That was it. What's the difference between immortality and living forever? Yeah.
Well, these people.
Immortal, they would just bust out of their shells and keep living.
Okay, so they have to. I have to let them know about the lobsters. I must let them know.
Just the lobsters. There's many creatures in the ocean that they.
No. Don't care. The lobsters. You don't understand my connection. You don't understand, man. All right, I'm gonna go now. Nobody cares about my stupid lobster thing.
I love the lobsters, man.
Anyways, all right. Thanks, everybody. Peace.
All
Bye.
right,
Be skeptical. Eat something. MathPig is a math. Something. Oink. Meow.
Can I just say that is possibly the best YouTube name I've ever seen?
Nancy.
Jesus.
I'm halfway through.
Jesus, yeah, like that's hilarious.
If I can,
excuse me, Titan Uranus. Thank you. Like
no, I actually no. Titan Uranus is not the best name. The best name is Europa Bumhole. New Genesis, Nancy. I'm halfway through writing an email. I want to respond properly. I haven't had a chance. I've been quite busy and stuff. So if I get a chance to retort, shout out to, was it New News? What was that, Richard, that popped up? I can never get the name right. New Genesis Connection. Is that correct?
Aye.
Hi, Nancy. I haven't replied because I'm giving the email time. I'm trying to write it in a
slacker. Richard, one thing I want to know, because the way you described as a movie in your head, I have dreams that are basically like movies, right? And then I wake up and I'm like, I should have paid money in a cinema for that dream kind of thing. Like, no, I'm serious. Like the best movie you've seen. And
you.
Yeah, man, it's weird. It's weird, but I don't know. My sleeps, there's a few weird things about my sleeps. Like if I wear socks, I'll always have nightmares without fail. It's weird. I'm a very strange person when it comes to sleep. But anyway, what I want to know is how do you know this movie vision? What would you call it? What would you describe it as?
Okay, a religious person, which I don't consider myself religious, because that's like
I don't consider myself religious, but I'm a Christian and a Muslim, but I'm not religious.
Right, because I don't adhere to all these rituals and stuff. I think religion's about ritualism.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just wondering how you describe if a non-religious revelation or a vision or a transmission, or what would you describe it? I just know the right word to use.
Right. I don't feel like I've answered at all. A religious person would call it technically personal revelation. That's like the technical term for it from a Christian point of view.
Sure.
And perceptually, to me, it was crystal clear, not foggy like my dreams at all or anything like that. Of course, I understand that the mind will fill in gaps in dreams and make it more smooth than it actually was. But this didn't happen.
Yeah.
This didn't happen while I was awake. I wasn't in any kind of an altered state whatsoever. I wasn't drunk or using drugs or anything like that. I was on a little old lady's couch reading her Bible. I didn't even own one. And it was just the story of David and Goliath and a translation of that with lots and lots and lots of repercussions. So it was like a movie where I was the camera filming it.
Yes, I've had that in dreams, but what I want to know is sort of how do you evaluate it as being accurate and correct? How would you verify it as being representative of reality?
The same way I evaluate anything. Does it meet criteria for saying this is at least plausible, right? Like, is it self-defeating? Does it make contradictory statements? Is it plausible in reality? That is, does it comply? Does it comply with physics? Is it something that I can make up? Is it within my experience, or is it a compilation of experiences that I've had that my brain could be putting together? Those kinds of critiques is why I say what I say about it.
Mm-hmm. But sort of, I guess when you say to see if it's plausible, plausibility isn't the same as something being in fact true. Like it could be plausible that there's a teapot around Jupiter, but I don't know if that's true or not.
Right, because plausibility doesn't confirm a thing; it can only disconfirm a thing.
What do you mean by that?
You can only say it can say
something
that's not
being
plausible.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah,
you
okay,
could say
gotcha.
it's one measurement. It's one of the things you have to go through to even say, well, this is reasonable, and it doesn't confirm it. It can only deny it.
Yeah. So what led you to the next step from plausibility to high probability or your belief in it? Like what caused you to go, oh well, this isn't just plausible, this is in fact true?
Okay, so I'm going to ask you to trust me a little bit that I've been with me my whole life. Okay.
Well, I know that.
Well, some people don't think about that. When I make the following statement, they don't go, I've been with me my whole life. I know what the kinds of things I've been interested in, the kinds of things I've studied, the kinds of TV shows I've watched, the kind of radio programs I've listened to. I know my preferences.
Okay,
my preferences were never.
Sorry. Richard, that sort of everybody's in that same boat, right?
Yeah, I know. I just have to point it out for some weird reason.
Okay, sure.
And not necessarily you. I'm speaking to more than you in your questions.
Oh yeah, gotcha. Okay.
So don't take it personally that I feel like I had to say that. So I know I wasn't interested in astrophysics. I didn't watch TV shows or movies that were like accurate in astrophysics. I wasn't interested in chemistry. I wasn't, that those weren't my things. Okay. I liked comedy shows, and I liked technical manuals, like machining. That's my stuff. Okay. So I know that I didn't learn certain things that were revealed in this movie, like the necessary chemistry of moons over Jupiter. That's just something I wasn't introduced to. And because I'm 54 years old, they didn't teach that when I was a kid in school.
Okay, so you're saying that you had knowledge that you couldn't have had sort of a priori access to, kind of thing, that you gained this knowledge. Have you talked to any chemists? Because the chemistry is going to be the same whether in the moons of Venus or, you know, on Earth, kind of thing. Chemistry is chemistry, right?
I'm saying there's certain chemicals that have to be there. Now, I thought that it was wrong.
Okay.
Like, I thought it was so wrong that part of it is that there's moons over Jupiter, right? I was under the very false, I understand it's false, impression that we called the moon because it's the moon. Like, the only one anywhere.
Oh.
Which is why we call it the moon. Like, what the hell else would you call it? So I was, I mean, that level of ignorant of astrophysics and our near stellar bodies, you know? So when the story claimed there's moons over Jupiter, I went, no, there ain't. And I went to nasa.gov and typed in moons around Jupiter, expecting it to go, sorry, no result. And there were results. And
there's a lot of moons.
Yeah, I
think
learned
Saturn
there's
has
like
slightly more.
72, I think, is the most recent count.
Yeah,
last
that
time I
sounds
checked.
about right.
I don't know how many, but I know it's quite a few.
And the four major moons, which are accurately given in relative comparative distance, relation to each other, and compared to Jupiter, including their coloration, so position, coloration, and approximated relative size, is in the story, and that is all true.
Sorry, what's in the story? The size of the Jupiter's moons?
No, the four major, the Galilean moons, not all of them.
And that's in what story, sorry?
David and Goliath.
Are they?
Yeah, in this reading frame, that's what's there.
Are you sure?
Richard Melton, I kind of love you.
I love you too. But please honor everyone else.
Yeah, I'll show you tonight. So.
Well, no,
I was going to ask.
Guys, but it was good to see y'all.
I know one of the major. Oh, very good to see you. Have a good night, day, morning, whatever. What the Jovian moons? What you've got? Io. I can't remember the rest of them, but that's one of the major ones. I don't remember reading about Io in David and Goliath. Can you point me to the passage?
Yeah, you wouldn't. You wouldn't see it that way, and in fact, I don't think I would have seen it that way either. What is that background noise?
No.
Sorry, that's my keyboard.
Sorry, MathPig, I love you as well.
Oh, Wildheart, how you doing? I haven't seen you for ages, man.
No, yeah, carry on talking. Sorry.
Yeah, so Jovian moons. You've got Europa, Io, Ganymede, Callisto are the four major. And yes, I did have to look that up. Don't think I am that smart. Yeah, so I don't remember reading about any of those in. Let's go, David and Goliath passage.
Do I want to know the pain? It's silent lucidity.
Brother Wildheart, you can't do that.
No.
I love you, but
Yeah,
I will just have to decline this. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'll just sorry.
Now, I love you. I want to enjoy you to enjoy your present state, but it may not involve participating in this show.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'll just sorry.
Totally up to you.
Sorry. Yeah, I'll just sorry.
So what are the moons in this story?
Well, Goliath is the planet itself, while his armament is the moons.
In silent lucidity, because of there was a break. So in silent lucidity, sorry.
So how did you get from sort of bronze helmet and a coat of scale mail and greaves and a javelin? How did you get to moons from that?
Well, I didn't. They were the characters in the story in the beginning of the movie, and then the characters literally transformed into these stellar objects.
Okay. Okay, but the problem here is you've said that you're relying on the Bible's reading of these moons in the story of David and Goliath to back up the truth of your dream, but you've just gone back to the dream to say, hey, the interpretation of that Bible was given to me by the dream. So, or the vision, or I don't even remember. I don't think you pinned down what you would call it. Let's just call it a vision, right? Or the vision that you've given. So what you've got here is unfortunately, Richard, a circular argument where you're relying on the Bible to prove that the dream was in fact true, but you're relying on the dream to interpret the Bible. So you've got a circular argument, because if the dream isn't true, or the vision isn't true, right, this movie-like sequence isn't true, then that wouldn't apply to the Bible.
Yeah, Richard, that is a logical fallacy.
Thanks, Wildheart. You're very drunk, and he left out 1/3 of it.
Right.
What third? Sorry.
There's NASA. That you kind of left out of that, which was outside of my knowledge range. Okay. So
yeah, gotcha. Yeah, I guess the problem with that is that the brain remembers tons of stuff that we're not even aware of. Like
that's going to be an excuse.
I feel like I've had this conversation with you before about the brain. Like if you hypnotize people, they will come up with all kinds of things that they don't even know they know, basically.
But they were exposed to it.
Right.
Yeah. But what are you saying is that you were exposed to it, you just weren't aware of it because you're.
I understand Mark's point, Wildheart. I'm not drunk.
Sorry.
I'm not drunk.
Yeah, sorry. I am.
I mean, I accept you as you are. It's okay. You just have to accept that I'm not in the same state. Okay?
Yeah, right. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
And you keep promising me you'll show some self-restraint, and then you don't. And that was 3 times. And I'm going to ask you again, have self-restraint or just take yourself off the channel. Okay? I'd love to have you when you're more you. Okay?
Yeah, I'm kind of Wildheart. I love you, man. I'm just really worried about you. I think we're all concerned about you, mate. I really. Are you okay? Are you doing all right?
No, keep on the discussion between you and Richard Madsen. I'll be quiet.
Wildheart does consistently claim that it's good for his mental health to have social interactions in this fashion.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's cool then. Yeah. That's good.
That's consistent. Yeah. Okay. Now, I am aware of what you're saying and that it is true that people can gather information and in their conscious mind, in their aware mind, they kind of put it on a back shelf, maybe even forget that it's there.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do about that, like ever-changing whistling noise. Does anyone know what that is?
Is it me? Hang on, I'm just going to mute myself to see if it's me.
Yeah, I'm going to mute as well because it might be me. Sorry.
Mark, unfortunately, it is you.
Okay.
I would ask that you unmute every time you want to speak.
Yeah, sure. Give me 1 sec.
So I don't know what that thing is. Give you 1 second means wait till you respond again. So I'll wait till you respond again.
Although Richard Madison, I will be belligerent and tell you that I love you again.
It's very sweet. I love you too.
I'll mute again. Sorry.
Okay, that should fix it.
It did.
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's cool. It's just my system's just getting a bit overloaded because I've got like a million things in the background, so I just shut them all down. That's okay.
It's a cooling fan, yeah.
Yeah, cooling fan. So I've got to relocate this system at some point, but I've just been lazy about it. So my apologies. I'm sorry for my horrible professionalism. Everybody, please forgive me. So yeah, the idea that we can have things that we know, but we don't bring them to mind, and even if asked, we can't bring them to mind. I kind of refer back to people who are like victims of crime and they get hypnotized and they bring up all of these details that they would not be able to recall, kind of thing. The brain's weird like that.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, let's try to move forward.
Okay.
But by assuming that that my brain put this together. Okay. That somehow I accidentally collected the existence of moons, even though, never mind that I somehow collected the existence of moons, and that I was at least aware of their like basal chemical makeup, because that's part of it.
Okay.
Their general comparative sizes and comparative locations to each other and to the planet they're orbiting.
No.
Wild Heart, you throwing that cigarette? Please put it out properly. No, like seriously, dude.
It hit the guitar and it made a sound.
Okay.
But you should still put it out, please.
Yeah, Richard, I'm just asking you. It's probably best for everything. Just leave him here, put him backstage. Giving him the attention is just to encourage it. And I generally think for his own mental health, it works out better. You ignore him, he drinks less. Just put him backstage.
No, please don't do that, Richard.
Thrives off the attention.
Wild Heart, part of being loving to a person, is always telling them the truth as you understand it.
Yeah, MathPig is telling me the truth, but
okay,
he's just wrong on this occasion. On this occasion, no, sorry, I'll shush. Sorry.
It's not I want you to shush. It's I want you to be good to yourself.
Whiteheart, we want people to have a better opinion of you rather than the guy who's lying on the floor, unbroken furniture, with a duvet with no duvet cover around him, randomly talking. I'd like to see a man sit up and have a conversation with me and be a 40-year-old adult. If you want to go to bed, and you're in your duvet, go to bed. Just go to sleep, man. You don't need people watching you sleep. That's what OnlyFans is for. Go over there and make no money. But this is, put an icon up. At least put an icon up.
Yeah, sorry, MathPig and Richard. and everyone else.
Just show respect for the actual show that we're
Yeah,
trying to do.
sorry,
We're trying to have a conversation.
Yeah, I'm leaving now. Richard, I love you.
Have peace,
MathPig,
brother.
I love you. Thank you. I'll leave now.
Well, that seemed like a rational decision.
Much love, Wildheart. I really, I do care, man. Yeah,
Oh, Mark, you were saying.
Oh yeah. So where were we? The whole Jove
I wanted
main.
to, I wanted to grant all that.
Okay.
So now we can get to a critique of the idea itself.
What idea?
The idea that if you apply the story of David and Goliath to the near stellar objects, there will be things that humans can witness from this planet, and with their own unaided senses,
right?
And those things could happen, or would happen in a specific order, and would be of a specific impact, of a specific, I want to say size, but that's not the perfect word. Magnitude, right? They'd be of a specific magnitude, and what would that mean overall if it had meaning? And here's my claim. My claim is that if you do that, you get the quote unquote signs of end times in a way that's plausible in physics, and it would like take consideration of gravity and things like that. Like it would physically work, and it would literally make the signs of end times in the correct order necessarily.
Okay.
So then if that's true, it has a lot of explanatory power, and that resolves the question. Not that I was trying to resolve the question, but it turns out there's this question of, which I didn't even know of at the time because I was not a debater. There's this question of unnecessary complexity. Like it should, part of should something be considered seriously is, does it answer more questions than it creates?
Give me 1 sec. I just want to track what you're saying. So I'm just going to grab my notepad. 1 second. Sorry, Richard.
Take your time.
Oh, notepads are good things, Matt. I am unmuted. Yeah. Go for the notepads. It makes it serious. It's always respected. You're showing attention.
So we've got here, and let's put aside let's put on the back burner the whole unnecessary complexity, because I'm not sure how that relates to like a naturalistic universe, because no complexity is unnecessary or necessary in a naturalistic universe. It just
that's the point.
Just is.
That's the exact point. That's why it's important.
Why?
Because if you the simplest necessary thing is the most likely answer, which is what we see everywhere.
That's Occam's razor, yes.
Yeah. Occam's razor is a So
I get
kind
you,
of a condensed. Okay.
Sure.
So when something shows unnecessary complexity, right? Like it's more complex than an explanation needs to be, it's probably wrong.
But under a naturalistic universe that is using determinism, everything that occurs is necessary. It's kind of like...
You said that twice, but that's my point.
Yeah, but then it's not unnecessary complexity.
Yes, which would make unnecessary complexity wrong, and only the necessary complexity is right. So necessary complexity is sufficient to explain a certain series of events, and that's all you need. You don't need more than that.
Richard,
So-
can I ask a question just on one topic? Me and you have had discussions before where we have to be very convoluted and go into a great amount of details just to get a very simple point across. With evolution and things like that, you can come across a simpler thing later on down the line after it's over necessarily complicated, because that's what it needs to get there to get a point.
Yeah.
I just wanted to pop in and be ignorant, and I'm going to be bouncing now. That was just no. I'm just
No, that's okay. No, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. That just because something's unnecessarily complicated.
Oh yeah. I just wanted to jump in,
Yeah,
say
no, I
bye,
get
say
you.
thank you, and I'd be bouncing.
Could you give me an example of something in a naturalistic universe that's unnecessarily complex?
Okay, an unnecessarily complex explanation of a naturally occurring thing. Gravity wants to pull the water down off the waterfall.
Okay,
because gravity prefers things to be stable. See, that it's like you're adding emotions to gravity. It doesn't need emotions.
Well, I never added emotions to gravity.
What makes you think that I just accused you of anything?
Well, no, I just said that I didn't add emotions to that.
No, you
and
asked
the
me for
point
an
is,
example of. I never said you said that. What
No,
makes
no,
you
no.
think I said you said that?
Well, you said that you don't have to add. Maybe you were talking to somebody else, perhaps.
You asked me for unnecessary complexity.
No,
I never
no.
said
So,
Marx or wanted to suggest that you thought that.
okay, just 1 second, Richard, because I think you've got the wrong idea about what I asked. So you basically iterated, and we'll sort of break this down. You said, give me something that's unnecessarily complex, that's natural, which isn't what I actually said. I said in a naturalistic universe, like in a naturalistic paradigm where everything is natural, the universe came about naturally, and it was deterministic, which means that everything that happened in the past necessarily leads to the future. So basically, the way that a rock falls seems random, but it's not. It's determined by the physics that control it. So in a deterministic universe, how we ended up was a result of the physics that came before. And that would, if the physics were exactly the same, we would get exactly the same outcome in, say, another universe with exactly the same thing happening. Does that make sense?
I agree with all of that so far. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. So in a naturalistic universe where can you give me an example of something unnecessarily complex?
You want something to happen that can't happen. What are you asking me?
Well, that's where I think it's flawed, because
it's not what I'm saying.
Okay, so what
I'm saying that that's a proof that is a disproof. Again, it's a disproof.
Okay. Of?
Because things don't need to be unnecessarily complex. The standard physics, the predetermination, because of those physics, already demand that A, B, C, and D will happen.
Yes, so they are necessarily complex. The way that you described water going down, its physics needs to be that complex in order for it to do that, and for the universe to appear to us as it is naturally. So if it wasn't necessarily like that, we wouldn't be in the universe that we're in. We would be in a different universe with different physics. Does that make sense? So all physics is necessarily as complex as it needs to be. Or else we wouldn't be in this universe. We would be in another. Like this is coming from a naturalistic paradigm, right? You understand that this is sort of the naturalistic worldview.
I am not doing a good job of explaining this, and it strikes me.
Right.
No, it's not okay.
Right.
So So it strikes me that there might be people who explain it better. So
Okay.
I'm just going to bring up an example of that. All right. All right. Unnecessary complexity.
Night, y'all.
Peace and respect. Have a good night.
Math Minopalooza, New Year's Eve. Come on, everybody. See you later. Bye.
Good night. What's MathPig Afterparty? What is that?
Mark, I'm not too sure how far you're away. You see, thank you. This is what I was trying to do when I deliberately interrupted earlier and was ignorant because I was trying to nip out. Wanted to say night and do exactly this. So thank you, Mark. I'm flying over to St. Louis for Christmas and New Year's to go and spend it with Savage Minnow, and I'll be there for New Year's Eve weekend. Guaranteed to be there will be me, Savage, and Bree, and between the three of us, we booked a wee place. We got it on offer. It holds 10 people, so there is now a 2-day New Year's Eve party for the community that is the pigsty and anyone else who's not insane who wants to come and join us. And $70 covers 2 nights stay in deluxe accommodation. It is real nice, like it's all funky and 60s style. It's
Cool.
a museum trip, free t-shirt, pizza party on the Friday night, and New Year's Eve party on the Saturday night. And if you can get to St. Louis, it costs $70 for the 2 days. That covers everything except your alcohol. You have to buy your own booze. But other than that, we've tried to make it as cheap as possible, and we sort of need 10 people to break even. But if we can get a few people to come join us, not going to be anything fancy, just friends hanging out, getting an opportunity to come and meet each other. Sammy's going to be hopefully there. I'm going to be there. Bree's going to be there. Richard's going to be there. Uncle Beck's going to be there. You know, obviously they all have to confirm, but this is, we're hoping this should be it, man. 10, 15 of us all getting together.
Man. Yeah, good food, good drinks, good culture, museum trip. Why not? Like, dude, if I could make it over there, I would come, but it's a bit far for me.
Well, you see, this is it, Sammy. We were looking at it from Australia. From Australia to America is super expensive, but you can get to Thailand for cheap, do a night over, get yourself a blowy, and fly into LAX with Sammy, and sort that. It's not,
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe from Eastern States for me. I live in the most isolated city in the world, so yeah.
Oh, well, that might make things difficult, but
I'd probably
I should let you get back to it. But if anybody else is up for it, as I say, I'm going to be in America for the 11 days, but them 3 days, we're hoping to get together, everybody from the community. I don't know, shake hands, share food, share drink. Richard was talking about somebody grabbing his ass earlier. It's
nice. Yeah, well, I mean, as long as you wear that suit and fedora, I would be there. Quite frankly.
Oh man, I've better suits than this. This one's a cheap one.
Oh, baby.
Don't
threaten me with a good time.
Fancy dress party on the New Year's Eve night, and fancy dress means anything you want. If you want to come dressed as Chewbacca, come as Chewbacca. You want to come in a suit, come in a suit. Come in a dress, do whatever you want. But we want everybody to just be themselves, be comfortable, just dress up, have fun, and we're hoping to all get together. Invite out to you as well, JG, if you're anywhere near Missouri or St. Louis.
Hey, I'm not, but thank you. What's up, guys?
Hello.
Bows out, sees you all later, and love to everybody.
See you, MathPig. Take care, man.
Peace and respect.
Peace and respect.
Later.
Peace and respect, JG. Welcome.
Hey. Thank you.
While I'm trying to find someone more eloquent than myself to explain what unnecessary complexity is, did you have anything to add to the conversation, JG?
No, I'm just kind of popping in, so
no worries.
I just add in when available. I don't know.
I don't know why I can't find the debate style or scientific style of an explanation of this. These are all like colloquial examples. I don't know if
Yeah.
you like examples.
Well, I mean, I understand what unnecessary complexity is in a design space kind of thing. So when we're designing code, say, unnecessary complexity would be functions that don't need to be there, or sort of an iterative function that doesn't need to be done, or redundant code that basically does the same as something else but doesn't need to be there kind of thing. So we're talking about things when you design them, they incorporate functions or certain aspects to them that are extraneous to the purpose of whatever it is, right? So you might have a car with a boot warmer, right? That's unnecessary complexity, right? It doesn't need to be there. But when we're looking at natural things, usually we're not talking about unnecessary complexity unless someone's claiming that natural thing was designed. And then we sort of say, hey, unnecessary complexity is kind of, because the good design tries to keep it simple as much as possible. There's the KISS principle in engineering, which is sort of keep it simple, stupid. I'm not calling you stupid. I'm just saying that's the same.
I know the expression.
Yeah. So, but it only sort of applies to a design space. You know, you could say that there's unnecessary complexity in the human body, for instance. Maybe the what's that? Laryngeal nerve has unnecessary complexity. It loops around the heart and back up to the neck.
Recurrent pharyngeal nerve, yeah.
Yeah, recurrent. Is it laryngeal? It's laryngeal.
It's pharyngeal.
Is it? Are you sure?
It refers to the pharynx, the voice box.
Oh God. It means I've been saying it wrong. No, it's laryngeal. It's definitely laryngeal. I thought I'd gotten it wrong all this time. That's okay. We know what we're talking about, right? So yeah. When you're talking about things in nature, the reason
Can you share
why
what you just looked up there?
Laryngeal nerve? Yeah, sure. I mean, it's just a Wikipedia article, but sure.
Yeah, just because people deserve clarity.
Can I comment? Yeah, I'll get it here.
No, not.
Oh,
not
I don't
comment.
have a wrench. There's no.
You don't need. Can you do the following without question? At the bottom of StreamYard, hit the screen that reads the button that reads present at the bottom.
Oh, you want me to share my screen?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Give me 1 sec. I'll just get it on another screen. Present.
Thank you. So I know that's right. I don't know where I had the misspelling and mispronunciation.
No, that's okay. That's all right. I just, I've used this as an example against theists in a few debates. So I just oh no, I've said it wrong all this time in debate. No, I'm good. That's not the first time I would have misspoken in a debate. Trust me on that.
No, I mixed up the words larynx and pharynx.
Yeah, no worries. But this is sort of the way we sort of say, hey, this is unnecessary complexity is from a design standpoint, right? If this was designed by some sort of creator or some kind of thing doing the blueprints, this is a nerve which goes from, sort of up here all the way down through your heart and then back up to your neck. Now, the gap is only like about that big that it covers kind of thing, so a tiny little gap. So it's complexity that doesn't need to be there from a design standpoint. And it's even bigger in like giraffes and stuff. It goes all the way down a giraffe's neck, loops around the heart and all the way back up. It is incredibly complex for what it's trying to do. But it sort of stems from an evolution standpoint of when we were basically fish, and the points were a lot closer together, but the way they interlocked through the heart, the veins going to the aorta going to the heart, as we evolved, it sort of drew it down as the heart moved down the body over multiple, millions of generations kind of thing.
Because essentially there was no neck.
Yeah, there was no neck. So it's sort of as the heart moved down from near the front of the head in fish, well, ancient fish, it basically lengthened that and lengthened it and lengthened it until you get something like the giraffe, where it still does the same loop it had in the fish, but it is traveling so far, and that's the evolution explanation, which seems to fit the best. But we can talk about
where
that later.
Richard Dawkins went to Australia Zoo, where there was a giraffe who stopped living, and they were doing an anatomical survey of it, and he observed that, and they said it was something in total about 14 feet long.
Yeah. So it has to go down one and back up the other. Yeah, absolutely. So it's just, but the whole point is, as far as a naturalistic explanation, that isn't unnecessary. It's necessary complexity. It's kind of the way that things evolved. That's
so like 7 minutes ago, I identified the impasse, and I've been waiting for you to pause.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry, I don't.
Okay. So as you said, natural occurrences don't exemplify unnecessary complexity, and you're totally right. Okay, I would never argue against that. This time we've neglected that there's intelligent interference in a process. In other words, you took the idea of angels interfering with physicality completely out of this, and said, well, do you see my point without further explanation?
Yeah. So, intelligence interference in process, if that in fact did happen, then
not did happen. Put that out. That go away, Christianity. Go away.
What do you mean?
It's not a past event.
Oh, so it's happening now?
It has not happened.
Oh, so these intelligent interference hasn't happened yet, but will happen.
Yes, that is definition of prophecy.
Okay.
So I'm only talking about the plausibility of it.
Right. So when you were talking about plausibility before, you were talking about the unnecessary complexity within the universe that we observe. And I guess what I'm trying to get across to you is I'm not understanding how you're lining up unnecessary complexity for evidence, because in order for it to be unnecessary, you have to take the position that the universe isn't completely naturalistic to start off with.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Okay, so sorry, go ahead.
I absolutely never make that assumption.
I just wanted to interject something there. When I hear the term unnecessary complexity, it makes me think something we just don't understand. That's what I tend to think when I hear that. Something is there for a reason. We don't necessarily understand why it's there. Because to call it unnecessarily complex seems like we have an understanding that we don't have, perhaps.
I don't think so. Usually I'm look at unnecessary complexity in a design space. So if you write code and it has sort of a loop that checks just say it checks an integer that's already been checked earlier in the code, right? That is not useful to have. It's complex and unnecessarily so. There are simpler ways to write codes and there's more complex ways to write codes. And we understand everything about it. It's just one way will be simpler than the other.
Yeah, when you're speaking of say a human created code, I can understand that. But when it comes to something that's in natural existence that we don't understand, to call it unnecessarily complex, like a being or an animal, that seems to me like something we don't understand about that particular being or animal, as opposed to like a human created code.
Right.
Anyway, go on. It's fine.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know of anybody that sort of applies to sort of naturalistic explanations, like, oh, that animal's digestive tract is unnecessarily complex, kind of thing. And you are right. We might not understand the reasons behind it. Like, they may be eating something that we don't know about and say, well, we don't understand why it's so complex. But I don't think anybody would sort of go, and we might say it might seem unnecessarily complex, but we generally don't apply unnecessary complexity to natural things, because they're sort of as complex as they need to be.
How about if I just give you Bob Price's example? Maybe that'll work. I don't know. What is wrong in David and Goliath in saying a really long time ago there were wars and these two guys fought?
There were wars, and I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that. We don't know whether that story is an allegory for something else. We don't know whether it was a real event. We don't really know the circumstances behind that story to say whether it was or it wasn't. I mean, we could assume it was a real event between two individuals. That's okay, but maybe I'm not getting what you're asking, Richard. I'm not understanding.
That's because I didn't finish.
Okay.
And I want to have another conversation with him and say, okay, to say that David and Goliath is an allegory for near-stellar bodies would be overly complex when we have a very simple explanation of the story. Two guys in a war fought. It was a really cool fight. Okay. So two guys fought is a really cool fight. It is a decent explanation. Okay. But if it's talking about near-stellar bodies and it explains this entire huge chunk of the text and its claims, and explains how they could happen in the described order, and we would perceive it the way that it's described from our perspective on this earth, then it explains a lot more, and it's not unnecessarily complex. It's necessarily complex, which makes sense.
Yes, but you're sort of multiplying entities, which is the whole point of why we don't use Occam's razor for that, because instead of the simple, and don't forget, Occam's razor, it only says what is probably true or most likely true. It doesn't say what is actually true. So I can't say, hey, you're completely wrong. It can't mean this. Certainly not saying that. But you've got the simpler explanation where it's two people actually had a fight. They wrote it down. Simplest explanation. You're multiplying entities if you sort of go, well, these people represented, say, nations, kind of thing. And you know, because that's the line some people have taken about that story, that they represented certain nations. Big nation attacked a smaller one, the smaller nation fought back and won. That kind of thing. You're multiplying entities because there's not only the characters, there's also the representations. So if you're talking about, you know, this represents the Jovian moon and all of its moons, and there's David, that's multiplying more entities, because then you've got the not only the planets in the story, but you have other moons around the Jovian around Jupiter. You've got other astrological bodies. You're really getting up to a huge amount of complexity at that point.
And what's wrong with that?
Well, nothing. I'm just saying that your whole thing about sort of the simplest, Occam's razor, is that you would try for the simplest explanation first. Okay. You would sort of lean towards that, barring any other influence that would suggest it is the more complex explanation.
Okay.
So yeah, if we've got, like, something fell down and hit somebody, your first thought would be accident, not murder. But if you do find evidence that it's murder, sure, absolutely, we go in that direction. But the simplest explanation is usually the correct one. So I'm kind of wondering how you got from the simplest explanation of, oh, it was just a couple of guys in a fight, got blown out of proportion, or it was nations, to these are the Jovian moons kind of thing. And I'm not seeing the link there. I'm just not seeing it. I'm sorry.
What makes you think I think you're taking Occam's razor, but what makes you actually think the simplest explanation is the right one? I mean, it sounds good, but
yeah,
because it usually is.
Because it usually is. That's how we usually start in our reasoning. It's basically take the least amount of entities involved, entities being just anything, basically anything at all, and go from there. It's done a lot in troubleshooting and things like that. It's why you hear somebody troubleshooting say, have you turned the power off and then on again? Because the simplest explanation is usually the correct one. That's not to say it has to be. That doesn't mean it necessarily has to be. It's just that's the way to approach things.
Because you can, like you mentioned, a detective trying to figure out, say, a homicide versus a murder or an accident versus a murder, but
sure,
there's different levels of complexity, right? Like you could figure out who killed who or why they died, but then you could go to an extended level of complexity about the series of events leading up to why that happened, go into the psychology, the characters involved leading up to that event, depending on where you wanted to take it. So you could simplify it and say person A killed person B and say that's the most reasonable, but then you could also say, is it unreasonable to think there's a series of events that led up to this that are very complex? I don't think it's unreasonable. It's just more complex. And it's still...
Sorry, Jay, go ahead.
No, it's good. That's all.
I love this example of the piano falling on somebody. It's that what we would do is approach it in a way that is, well, let's look at the first thing. Is it an accident? And if you do find evidence, I'm not saying you shouldn't consider any possibility, but what we want to do when approaching things is not assume the most complex. So if you assume the police officer assumes a murder first with no other evidence or reasoning or any kind of logic to point him in that direction, he's going to go off and interview people and try and find the murderer and try and catch the murderer kind of thing. It's going to lead him down a path that could, sort of that is potentially incorrect, and will waste a lot of time and lead him down basically a rabbit hole. The way that we approach things is we sort of go, okay, what's the simplest explanation with the least amount of entities that are involved? From there, and certainly you want to confirm that that's right. Occam's razor doesn't say, hey, just assume the simplest and go from there. No, it's just a way of approaching a logical dissection of phenomena in our reality, basically. It says start with the simplest and sort of find the evidence that leads you to the more complex ones. And that's just sort of one of the guidelines we have, because, like I said, if you go to the most complex, you're going to go straight down a rabbit hole, and work back to the simplest is a lot harder. So start simple, go more complex. Two people killed Goliath at two separate times. I don't remember reading that.
It's a fact in the Bible.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
How did he die twice?
So, it's not a person. Now, the Christians have altered it in their translations to say Goliath's brother. It's literally not there.
Okay. Of
course, they understand in logic you can't kill the same person twice. They're dead, and that's it. They're done. All right?
Yeah.
And except in the case of God power, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because God sometimes raises people back up after they're dead. All right? Now, I think to make a fair comparative, what we need to do here so we're on a level playing field, is to say, what is this, the Occam's razor simplest explanation in comparison to, okay? The Christian, on average, of course, that's a conglomerate. It's not perfect to any church. Of the signs of end times is God will make happen. Now, God will make happen has no explanatory power.
Can
you agree?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay, so what I'm comparing this to is something that literally has no explanatory power. Okay. What I'm claiming has some explanatory power is to say that a series of physical events would have physical results on the actuality that we perceive, and some of those results, if near enough to this planet, would be sensed by humans.
Sure.
If that's fair. Okay.
That has more explanatory power to me, because at least you're incorporating the physics that explain how things happen in reality. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So we can argue over, impacts and what it would take and lots of very, very complex things, but starting with just the basics so we can get through just the basics.
Mm-hmm.
A series of physical bodies literally physically interact, and there's repercussions to that. Some of the rather brittle, hard, heavy objects get smashed. Okay. And when stuff is smashed in space, it tends to head in a direction and keep going until something interferes.
Yes.
One of the things that can interfere is a gravitational field, which the Earth has. So the Earth can interrupt that path and make a curvature and pull in a physical object with mass.
Sure.
This is a lot of the reason that we have meteors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Meteorites. Okay.
Well, Jupiter's a lot of the reason why we don't. It catches a lot of them.
You're not
yeah,
kidding.
Go on. Yeah.
It catches a lot of flack.
Literally. Yeah.
Okay. So in application of David, and I want to make the point that I do not think this is a historical document. I don't think it's intended to be read as a historical document.
Okay.
That's why they sometimes use real people, sometimes make up people, sometimes use real cities that we can confirm. Sometimes that doesn't work for the example, so you just make up a city. You make up an entire people because you need them to behave in some specific way to tell the story. And there was no people available who actually did that. Because it's really specific.
Right.
So just using our natural environment, some history, some made up history, talking about future events that they will cause to happen. That is, it's their intent to happen. They claim it's within their power to make it happen. They promise they will do it. That. Okay. So I'm not saying that in the natural order, unless you take natural to its extent, to its logical eventuality, where I would say something like humans are a natural animal, want to create AI naturally eventually occurs. Because we're the animal that's natural that does it, and we naturally want to do it. They are natural.
Well, it depends on how you're using the word, because it can sort of have multiple meanings. So are you using the word as in natural as opposed to supernatural, or natural as opposed to artificial?
Natural as in occurring in nature, opposed to supernatural.
Right. So I would say with that usage of natural, that AI would be natural as opposed to supernatural. But if you're using natural in sort of a natural versus artificial, that of course is a different context. Okay. No, that's fine. I would say that then AI would be natural. Yeah.
That's a solid point. Yeah. That's a solid differentiation. Yeah. So as soon as you add awareness at a certain level and consciousness at a certain level, that consciousness, aware of what it can do and what its natural surroundings are, can mess with its surroundings intentionally.
Sure.
And make very unlikely things happen.
Sure. I don't think you need
I'm
intelligence.
not saying that.
Yeah.
What's that?
I don't think you need intelligence to mess with your surroundings. No, you don't need
intelligence for all occurrences of that, but for certain occurrences of that, you need intelligence.
Yeah, like AI, for instance. Absolutely, yeah.
Right. Okay. So, yeah. Okay. So there has to be a certain level of awareness, of ability, and advancements in technology in order to realize AI.
Sure.
If that's fair. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying is that an intelligence claims that it can and will interfere and take advantage of physics, not altering physics, but taking advantage of existent physics, cause a series of events in our near solar system that we will witness. Now, this is told in the Bible as David and Goliath, in Greek mythology as Hercules. I always mess this one up. It's either Apollo or Hermes. It's that character, the winged, fast.
That's Hermes. Hermes. The messenger god. Yeah.
I'm sorry. They all kind of mesh together, and I get names lost. And the giant, which to the Greeks is a cyclops and a blacksmith, and that's the same as Goliath. The same story with the same repercussions, told in slightly different way for that fits the culture and the place and time it's introduced, and several other religions. It just goes on. That the gods fighting each other is literally the planets colliding.
Okay.
That idea, which is why, and we even named the planets after these perceptions of perceived gods, these retired gods, which is really interesting. Because people thought of the gods being in the sky, and that, and then we said, well, actually those are planets. But yes, that's correct. That's correct. The story of the gods fighting is literally interaction between the near stellar bodies.
Well, I guess the problem that I would have with that is that the main fighting between the gods, as it were, was sort of Titans and the gods in Greek ancient religion. The Titans being the precursors to the gods, the earlier versions, and we haven't named the planets after them. We've named it after the new
lesser gods. Yeah.
Well, the new gods, really. So
fair enough.
Jupiter is Zeus, Mercury is Hermes, things like that, who didn't necessarily fight among themselves. I know that at one point Athena, the goddess of wisdom, fought Ares, the god of war, for instance, which is Mars, but Athena doesn't have her own planet as far as I'm aware. So there's not a lot of overlap there between the sort of fighting. But to get back to the sort of the inference that you're making from this David and Goliath story, and you know, I'm not sure how accurate the parallels are in other cultures. Let's just assume they're parallel. But in order to view that story as a depiction of the planets, you would have to have something that leads you to that conclusion that they are.
I've already told you what that was at the beginning of all of this.
Yeah. So that was sort of a vision and knowledge that came to you.
See, you want to claim that my brain did this, and then you want to ask me how I put them together, and you want to say it came out of your subconscious. How'd you put it together? Do you see how self-defeating that is?
No, it's the whole point that if you have a vision of these planets, the people turning into these planets, and then you go to the book and you say, yes, that is what it represents. Because I had the vision.
I don't know why you're reversing the order of how I experienced things.
Well, you had the vision first, didn't you? Before you thought the Bible represented the planets in David and Goliath. Is that right?
So I'm a hardcore anti-theist.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
And the only story that I could remember, and for only academic reasons, believing none of this is true, having a life where I feel like I'm strong enough, I don't need something to bolster me, making fun of religious people on a very regular basis, including some of my siblings, read David and Goliath.
Yep.
And as soon as I was done reading the story, even though I was awake and not altered purposefully or accidentally with any kind of foreign chemical substance that aren't agreeable to a human body, or alters a human mind state.
No, you said that.
Coffee, cigarettes, had a disruption in my control of my own mental states, which I am admittedly a control freak. I'm trying not to force that on others, but I am a control freak about me, right? Could not make end until it was completed, this movie-like sequence where a completely foreign, and I could give a crap less, and very disturbing series of events was played out, and I was forced to record it like I'm the camera recording the movie.
Right.
Now, I think usually when people want something, they also find it pleasant.
No, that's not necessarily the case. I want to go to the gym. I don't find it pleasant.
You have alternative reasons that you find pleasant.
Well,
you don't want to go to the gym. You want better health. You want a better physique. You want a lower count on this and a higher count on. You don't want to go to the gym. That's not true.
No, I don't want to go to the gym.
Right. That's not where your desire lies, and you do enjoy fulfilling your desire. The desire isn't go to the gym. Gym is a necessary step to get to what you want. You enjoy when you get what you want.
Sure.
It's not a claim you like going to the gym. That's not what I'd said at all.
I could say the same thing about you.
Go ahead.
Well, the experience wasn't, pleasant, but that doesn't mean it isn't what you want.
I'll tell you exactly what I was enjoying and wanting.
Okay.
Tom Collins and Morgan's Rum and Coke a really strong, dependable motorcycle. Not so great. I really wasn't doing a great job of building it. Construction business, remodel business. Other people's wives. And I had to let go of my entire life to the point where my siblings had to check on my sanity and make sure I was okay. So no, this is not what I wanted.
Well, I don't know. It doesn't sound like a very fulfilling life to me. If you're
Ask
sort of
Beck how happy I was with it.
Okay,
you won't
well,
believe me.
I don't. I don't know. I'm certainly not judging you.
I'm saying I was very happy with it.
Okay. I know that I probably wouldn't be happy with that life.
Everyone has different tastes.
Rum and sort of, I guess breaking up marriages and stuff. I wouldn't be very happy with that. I would certainly want to change.
I didn't say anything about breaking up marriages.
Well, what do you think the logical outcome of sleeping with other people's wives is?
Having a good time sexually.
Okay. All right, cool. I mean, you do you, boo. Yeah, so look, I'm not saying that's the case. I'm saying that not all the time do we go, okay, well, it's unpleasant. It has to be. This isn't what I want to go through. It just isn't the case. And I'm not saying that was the case this time. I'm saying that you made a blanket statement, and I'm saying it's not always the case. People drink.
I'm not really talking about people. I'm talking about me.
Okay. Well, it seems like a blanket statement to sort of go, well, I couldn't have wanted it because it was unpleasant.
Okay, I know I didn't want it, and it was unpleasant.
Okay. No, that's fine, Richard. I think the words you used were people don't want something when it is unpleasant, kind of thing. I think that was roughly the words that you used. I could be mistaken.
People aren't going to go the most unpleasant route to achieve what they desire, and they want things that they enjoy. And the things I was enjoying was being divorced after locked into a marriage for about 4 times longer than it should have been.
Sure.
Having lost all respect for women, having physical fun with them, and just forget the idea of emotional attachment. Because
yeah, I'm sorry. It's probably my fault. We got off on a tangent, Richard. I do apologize, mate. Like, what you're doing has nothing to do with the validity of what you're sort of saying. I must admit. So I'm really not trying to evaluate your life. You're a great guy. I love talking to you. I'm certainly not saying. I'm just saying that life wouldn't be fun for me. So. But that's okay. That's all right. People are different, and that's cool. That's all good. But we're sort of going off on a tangent. But what I really want to focus on is that. So you read this passage. You had a brain state change. Your brain state sort of told you that the characters in it were the celestial objects that you were talking about, the moons of Jupiter. How do we verify that is the case? How do I get to sort of know that was the case? Oh, Caterpillar, hello. So good to see you. I love Caterpillar. She's amazing. She's fantastic.
How do I get to what?
How do we get to verify that this vision was in fact a true depiction of reality? How do we investigate that for its...
You just threw away the word prophecy.
Did I? Prophecy. So it's a prophecy.
Yeah, you asked me to confirm the future. And
so it's what will happen.
The future. We can talk about what is impossible due to physics, chemistry,
Sure.
All those things we can say that's not possible. Okay. And we can say, well, that's adherent to physics, chemistry, logic, not self-defeating, things like that. And we can say,
Sure.
that's plausible. That's it.
Well, if it's a prophecy in the future that this will happen,
yeah,
how do we establish that in fact will happen? That is a accurate prophecy.
It's a prophecy.
We cannot. Happens.
Which what? Sorry.
We can't until it happens. It hasn't happened, so there's no way to verify it.
Right.
You can only you can only eliminate it as a possibility. That's the only thing that can be done.
Well,
now,
I
you
guess
can use general rules like unnecessarily complex. Is all that necessary to make those things happen? And you could say, well, it's too complex. That doesn't make sense. That needs refined. It's wrong right now. Or you could say, well, it's logically defeating. Because, like, if the story claimed that Jupiter both does and does not get ignited as a short-term star, you say, well, that's self-defeating. That can't be right. It's claiming in the same way, in the same state, on the same subject, two different states simultaneously. Well, you can't have that because of identity, right? You can say stuff like, yeah, what's that?
Or non-contradiction, sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, identity is one example, and you have two identities.
Yeah. No, I get you.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. You see my point. Okay. So you can go through an elimination process of possible future events. You can't show evidence to a future event, and unless I'm misunderstanding, that's what you're asking me to do.
Well, no, it's just that usually when we're talking about future events, like so what you're talking about is predictive power, right? How well we can predict what will occur in the future. And all of science is based upon predictive power. So when we sort of make a prediction that this will happen. Take, for instance, that relativity, analyzing the retrograde of I think it was Mercury's retrograde. Anyway, there's sort of things that we predict we will see. And then, we find them, and that sort of adds to the predictive power of whatever it is that we're looking at, whether that be the theory of relativity or Newton's laws or whatever.
And why is predictive power important?
Well, it's because really when you make a claim of events happening in the future, is the methodology that we're using dependable to give us the right answer is the question. Because throughout time, tons of people have predicted all kinds of things to happen in the future. I mean, I can even point to the Bible for some of its predictions that haven't happened, like the siege of Tyre.
I doubt it. You'll be quoting Christianity. You won't be quoting the Bible.
No. I'm just saying the siege of Tyre, for instance, that Nebuchadnezzar was supposed to do this or do that.
Quoting Christianity.
Well, Christianity then. Christianity. So that's a case of, well, these prophecies don't seem to have a lot of predictive power, or their Christianity doesn't seem to have a lot of predictive power. So when we're talking about prophecy, it doesn't have a lot, because it's a single instance. It doesn't have a lot of basis to believe that it will come true. So that's not necessarily saying that it won't, but the question has to be asked, how do you know that it will come true in an empirical way or objective way, rather than a subjective belief that it will come true?
So you're saying that predictive power is important is because it's supportive of the strength of the theory itself.
Yes, or the methodology that you're using. So methodology, if people on the audience don't know, it's basically the method in which you are going about gathering the evidence. And let me give you an example, just a quick one. Just say you're crossing the road, right? Certain things have better predictive power than others. If you look left, look right, listen for traffic, it's got a better predictive power than looking at the time and going, oh, well, a couple of days ago there was no traffic here. I think I'll cross the road. Right? One's got better predictive power than the other. So we can rely on one a lot more than the other. And sort of the way that science works, it tries to eliminate methods which don't have very good predictive power because there's tons out there. So what I'm trying to get at is getting a vision and sort of believing it upon that vision a good method for predictive power or not? And to me, it doesn't seem so.
Mm-hmm. Had I mentioned that I read one story in the Bible?
Yeah, David and Goliath.
Had I mentioned that I had not read the book of Revelation? Because by default, if I've read one story in the Bible, I have not read two.
Okay. Sure. I'm not sure what that's got to do with it.
It's predictive power. It's really strong predictive power. See, that translation of David and Goliath applied to near-stellar objects versus God power, which is no explanation,
right,
gives a plausible in physics, logically non-self-defeating, adhering to all these elimination processes, which are not confirmation processes, to
Sure.
a part I literally had not read.
Well, I don't think the Revelations has the exact same thing as sort of celestial bodies coming down. I'm not sure.
And a
why
mountain
you
fell
that.
from the sky burning with fire.
Yeah, there's a lot of interpretation.
That
over
doesn't
what
sound
that
like
can
a
be.
celestial object plummeting to the planet.
So you sort of said, well, it has explanatory power, but it sort of lacks a lot of it. It's got more than say a God concept. Don't get me wrong. That's got zero explanatory power. At least you have physics, and there is some things we can verify
A
behind
quaking of the earth spitting hail and fire mingled with blood does not sound physical to you.
Well, I don't think blood's going to come down.
No, it doesn't say raining blood. It says when the stuff falls from the sky, it'll be mingled with blood.
Okay.
That is,
why would we think that?
If something hits you in the head, at, I don't know, 200 miles an hour, and its approximated weight is 57 pounds, I can show that because it says a talent, about the weight of a talent, you're going to bleed.
So
it's going to have blood on it.
Yeah, but something that size wouldn't make it through the atmosphere.
Volcanic eruptions, rocks don't leave the atmosphere normally.
So, okay.
But a volcanic eruption can definitely quake the earth, spitting hail of fire that rains down onto the earth.
But how do you know this is a stellar object causing this and not like the supervolcano at Yellowstone exploding?
It is, I believe, it's so funny you should say that.
Right.
I believe it is literally Yellowstone, a supervolcano that is erupting.
Okay, but
I'm giving you examples of just how physical these things are and not magical at all.
Yeah, no,
and
I
how
get
this
that.
interpretation justifies each and every step in the correct order.
Well, that's my problem. It's an interpretation, and a lot of people interpret it differently.
I just interpreted the sentence you used, and you're interpreting mine right now. Please tell me what's wrong with interpreting a thing.
Well, there's an interpretation is a necessarily subjective thing.
Yes, it's necessarily subjective. Now, how do we know if something is the most likely interpretation?
We verify it with the physical facts.
Okay, if it makes physical claims, right?
Yeah,
you verify it with physical facts.
Yeah, empirical evidence, yes.
Yes, empirical evidence.
Yes.
Is it true that Jupiter, under the right conditions, artificially or naturally, could be at least a short-term star.
There
Is
is
that
no
true?
evidence. There is no evidence to suggest that Jupiter is a short-term star.
Except that it's 73% by volume liquid metallic hydrogen. It is an unrealized short-term star.
It is a star that never made it, yes, but the way you're talking suggests that it will become a star, and that's not going to happen. It does not have the mass.
No. Please don't
Well,
throw away half of what I said. I said
okay.
by either natural or unnatural means, interference. Could it be ignited as a, if we had a really big freaking laser and we shot this giganto laser into the core of Jupiter, and it was so powerful, it could penetrate the outer atmosphere and all of its density and reach the core of that and superheat what is literally more than hundreds of times the volume of this planet in liquid metallic hydrogen. Is there the possibility that if we did it on purpose using the right tools with the correct understanding of what the chemistry of the thing is, that we could cause fusion in the core of Jupiter?
We're not talking about what's possible. We're talking about what we have empirical evidence for it. So you've just sort of...
No, we're talking about prophecy. We are talking about what's plausible.
No. We're talking about empirical evidence. That was the last subject to come up. You've moved the goalposts from empirical evidence of something to the possibility of something, and that's a very, very low bar to clear. So the question was, and
don't tell me to hang on
say,
my channel. You're really upsetting me, and you've
guys. I don't think you established that there was a goalpost. I'm just listening in. I don't think that was established. So for what that's worth.
Well,
Mark, I don't think you're being fair with me.
Yeah, there was, and I'll explain why.
I think you have an agenda.
What do you mean?
I think you have an aim.
An aim?
Yes, a goal, an agenda.
Okay, I don't know what that would be. I'd simply just use my understanding of logic. And I'll sort of repeat back what you said. You said, how do we back up these things? And I said empirical evidence. You agreed with that, empirical evidence. Did we not agree on that?
Yeah, yes, empirical evidence is fine, preferably.
Right. We agreed on that, right? And then you went to the possibility that we could do this with a laser. I guess what I'm saying is that we have no empirical evidence of any interference with Jupiter that will happen or has happened or at all. I mean, the possibility of it is aside the point.
So you've asked me a third time. If I'm understanding you right, you've asked me now 3 times for empirical evidence to a future event, or am I just lost?
Yeah, but the problem is that in order to confirm that future event, you're sort of saying, hey, we need empirical evidence, or agreed with me that we need empirical evidence, but there's no evidence that this will happen in the future. That's right. My point. To
confirm a thing did happen, it needs to have happened.
Right.
That means it already happened. Which means it's not a future event, it's a past event.
Right.
Which will leave physical evidence to it having happened.
Right.
We would all love empirical evidence at all times. In future events, you only get plausibility. So what are you asking me for? I must be misunderstanding something.
No, we seem to be going in circles. For future events, we need the method claiming it to have predictive power, to be able to predict things with a reasonable amount of reliability in order to believe it can again predict the future.
Are you trying to establish how potential is measured projecting into the future? Is that actually possible? Are you trying to do that empirically? Because something is,
yeah.
you can say something is more reasonable than something else. You can try to measure into the future, but you only have certain systems in place that are only going to go so far. When you're talking about something that is going to happen, that's where you and Richard, I think, are unaligned here. He's talking about plausibility that you can't measure the way you want to measure it with the systems that you want to use. So it's a difficult conversation in that respect.
Yeah, and I'm sort of talking about methodology, how we come about to making predictions of what would happen and relying upon those predictions in the future. As I said, there's two ways to step into traffic. Both are absolutely can be used, and you can predict the future from both of them. But only one has a decent amount of predictive power based upon what it has been able to predict in the past.
Do you realize that when you're utilizing these predictive systems and putting labels on it like more reasonable or more possible or more reliable than others, that there's still a degree of faith involved in how this is going to work? Of course, because the future is never necessarily dependent on the past.
What's your definition of faith? Because I don't think we're using the same definition, if that's what you're saying.
Well, when you can try to look into the future based on past results, you never have anything in place. You never have anything in place that's going to establish that they will act like the past events, even though they do multiple times. There's a degree of faith there that they will happen like they have happened.
So that's called universalism or natural universalism, that things naturally will occur that have occurred in the past. And it's a basic tenet of induction. So our ability to sort of go, well, this is what happened when I did X, I'm going to do it again. Everybody uses induction.
Sure. Everywhere. They use it. What I'm saying is there's still a degree of faith involved in that, because you never truly know that it will happen again the way it has happened. That's never known for certain.
So what's your definition of faith? Because I don't think we're using faith in the same way here.
Well, you're in this circumstance, you're applying what is known to what will happen, and you never have that degree of certainty. No matter how many times it has happened in the past, it doesn't mean it will happen in the future. So there's always a degree of faith. That's how I'm using it.
So basically, because you're saying there cannot be absolute certainty, then you have to use faith in a certain way. And I'm afraid that's not how I use faith. Faith, when I use it, is things you have confidence in that you don't have evidence for, or things unseen that you don't have, that you just place an unwarranted confidence in.
Well, we can
now. Yeah. The problem is that when you're using evidence in induction, even though you don't have absolute certainty that you're talking about, you still have a reasonable amount of confidence in it because you have evidence to support it. So I'm not using faith. I'm sorry.
Well, where do you think the word confidence comes from? It comes from the Latin confide, which is faith. So that even though you want to mingle different definitions slightly, the concept still stands that the future requires some faith from the past that you're utilizing in order to bring it forward or to project it into the future. You're never going to know, no matter how many times you've done it in the past. So it's just a difference of word usage, but the concept is still the same.
Okay, so for a start, you've just done the genetic fallacy. Where a word comes from does not determine what it means now. Just because
I was
something
pointing out the word that
hang on.
Interchange.
Just because there is a word in Latin that means something doesn't mean that confidence has the same meaning today. So you can't equate the two. That is called the genetic fallacy. Now you talked about you can't have 100% certainty, so you've got to use faith. But what we're talking about here is a methodology, one producing a greater confidence level than another, and that you ought to have a certain method that raises up to a certain confidence level before you believe something. The whole point is, if you want to be intellectually consistent, then any future claim made, you would have to believe, JG, you would have to believe it, because you don't have 100% certainty, and therefore you have to use faith.
I think the claim is that you can have a certain amount of reasonable expectation of the future, and it's
Sure.
not faith. But for the rest of that, it is a belief. It's not showable.
Yeah, I think that's the same concept. I think we're all speaking of the same concept. I'm calling it faith. You're calling it a degree of confidence based on a degree of certainty. And Richard just said it how he said it. I think it's all the same concept.
Well, I don't think it is. I think that having a reasonable expectation, as Richard put it, a reasonable expectation of something occurring in the future will be backed up with the methodology that you're using to evaluate it. And at the moment, the evaluation appears to be Richard reading something and having a vision, which I don't think is a good methodology, because what I've seen is a lot of people claim the same thing, but we don't, and I'm including all of us in this, we don't believe them when they say it.
Yeah, I think I'm also trying to point out the reason you can't effectively argue with him from your standpoint is because he's talking in degrees of potential and faith in which your empirically minded structure can't actually touch. And that's part of the problem with this whole conversation.
Well, it's not a problem with the conversation. It's just we've got two different worldviews, and we're both explaining our worldviews. And I'm explaining how I arrive at my conclusions from my worldview. I can't delve into Richard's worldview because I don't have that. Well, I think it would be disingenuous for me to do so, pretend that I sort of have faith in these things and sort of say, hey, I'm going to believe them on faith, when I clearly don't. I'm not sure what you're expecting from me, JG. But what I want to know from you, is when other people say that they've had a vision of, God or these other things or anything at all, why you don't believe them if your criteria is the same as what Richard has said.
Why I don't believe specific claims or certain claims or any claims.
Just say someone said they got abducted by aliens, right? And they say they've been abducted by aliens. None of that is outside the purview of the natural world. It's plausible, same plausibility that could be applied to Richard's. What do you believe that just from them saying it?
Well, I always want to ask more questions, but I can't just refuse him.
But do you believe it?
It's hard to make a determination because I can't fully reject it. I can't just say I don't believe it, but a part of me may not want to or want more information.
Right. So you go looking for further evidence, right?
Yes. And at some point I realize it's not going to be the evidence that I want. It's not going to be empirical evidence, for one, a testimony of a unique situation that happened to somebody. I'm only going to be able to get so far with empirical testing, right? And I see that in this conversation.
Right. So what you've got is a intellectual inconsistency. You've got a certain amount of evidence from somebody that you don't know that claims that this thing happened in the past and has testimonial evidence that it did happen, and may even have some surrounding testimonial circumstantial evidence that it did. But you don't accept that claim. You want more evidence of that claim. But you're sort of making not a protest, but sort of you're trying to say to me, hey, you're coming from it from an empirical standpoint where you require more evidence to believe it, but you do exactly the same, JG. I don't.
Yeah, I do have the same methodology as you. I think what it is I differ in my understanding of what that methodology entails. Even the empirical model requires degrees of faith. I think that's where we differ. The presuppositions that go into the empirical model require degrees of faith in ways that from the beginning point of these models, they rely on philosophy that relies on faith and the unknown. And the consistency and the reliability is not a sure thing. So any way we step into the unknown. We step into things that we want to rely on, but there are degrees of confidence and faith that are needed in order to use each model, both models that we're using.
Yeah, so presuppositions and axioms are not faith. They are things that you implement in order to arrive at your worldview, and everybody has them, but they're not faith. Because faith isn't involved, because you're basically relying on the predictions and those predictions being fulfilled in order to measure the efficacy of the method. So
I thought there was no evidence for presuppositions.
There isn't. I never said there was, but presuppositions aren't faith.
Well, without using the word faith,
right?
I'd like a definition of confidence, and perhaps you would, gender some kind of a definition for presupposition.
So confidence would be the level of trust you have that your belief is in fact true, that it does comport with reality.
So it's trust in a belief.
Sure. I mean, that sounds like faith to me. You want to coin it as something else, but that sounds like faith.
I mean, if you want to call confidence faith, it's not how theists usually use the word faith. But if you want to call confidence faith, then
the point is the concept that even when you have a presupposition or an empirical model, you don't have the completeness of understanding within it. Even though you test something and use a methodology that's reliable, there are components to it that are uncertain always. And the components that are always uncertain require a degree of confidence or faith or trust.
All right, it's almost starting to sound like Mark invited us to critique his worldview.
Well, you guys go ahead. You guys go back to what you're talking about.
No. But JG, like I said, we never have 100% confidence of anything, or 100% faith, if that's how you're using the word, of anything. The fact that you're sort of saying, hey, the last bit requires faith. No, it doesn't, because we never have that confidence or that faith. Right? We only have as much confidence as the evidence allows us to have, and that's never absolute. So you're sort of thinking of science as, hey, we find these things out and have absolute confidence. No, we don't. There's always that evidence, that element that it could be wrong, or it could be.
Would you assign?
I'm not disputing that. I'm saying the method itself is a faith-based method. In its beginning point, yes, it is. I mean, this might be a different discussion, but it is.
It's 100% not. It's 100% not. We do start with certain presuppositions. Like if you're basically going, well, I'm going to burn down the chessboard, and basically say, well, we can't be sure of any of our senses. We could be a brain in a vat and go for that. That's fine. That's a presupposition that I make, that this world is in fact real and that my senses for a given level of accuracy are in fact correct. But if you want to say, hey, that is not true, that's your entire lookout. I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, so when you just said it's 100%, when you said it's 100% not that, how confident are you that it's not 100% not that?
I'm pretty confident, yeah.
How confident?
Oh, 99.99999.
So it's not 100%. It's 99.99.
Did I never have 100% confidence. Like I said,
it's 100% not that.
Yeah.
Yes. It's 100% not faith.
So
well, I mean, it's close to 100 as humanly
when you say
possible.
you have 100% confidence in a thing, you don't mean you have 100% confidence in a thing. You mean you have something less than 100% confidence.
Well, yeah, I must admit I am rounding up, but I have as much confidence in that as I do that my senses are real. I mean, I can't go higher than that. It's the highest confidence I have. So maybe I am rounding up to 100. Maybe it's 99.999999999999999. Sure.
And
But
that's key.
there's never 99% of something. Everything's
Sorry?
always 100% of itself. What do you account the other?
Okay, so let's say, for instance, we are, and this is getting into hard solipsism, which I'm not sure you really want to go into because it is burning the chessboard down. It's basically destroying everything. So let's do it.
I don't think that's what's happening.
Hold on a second. If you are a brain in a vat
I'm
and
not
none of the
doing that.
laws of physics are real and the laws of logic do not apply, right?
No, you don't
so
get
the
to
laws
just
of
jump
logic.
forward. It's not what I did. It's not what I said. It's not what JG said. You're putting words in our mouths.
Well, if the laws of logic
Nobody
are
demanded
not
solipsism here.
well,
And it's not going towards solipsism.
If
It
the
isn't.
laws of logic are not true, I cannot make inductive claims about anything. I have to first have the laws of logic before I can use induction at all. So I'm nearly 100% sure that the laws of logic are in fact true, that they're as true as anything I can point to in this world. But if you're basically going to say, well, that's faith, you can't argue for the laws of logic, well, fine. But you just mentioned the law of identity. How are we supposed to communicate without the law of identity?
I mean, I agree with you. It's not necessarily the matter of how are we able, but the point is that even within utilizing these alleged laws, identity, non-contradiction, the laws of logic, that there's a degree of faith involved in having confidence in these laws themselves as a starting point, as a continued reliability. So it's inescapable. That was just my point.
If you want to use faith for that, you can, but that's a presupposition that you would not. No philosopher would call that faith. I would challenge you to find a single philosopher that's causing a presupposition of the laws of logic being true as faith. I mean,
I'm saying within the presupposition, there's a degree of faith involved. Is what I'm saying.
I don't see that as faith. I certainly would not. It's a necessary presupposition. It's absolutely necessary.
To say it's necessary and assuming that there's no faith is a connection that you're making that I don't think you can.
Yes. So you're using faith in some way I don't even understand right now. I don't know what your definition of faith is, but it seems you're basically using faith as in anything you don't have 100%, complete and utter absolute certainty about. And I don't know anybody that uses faith in that way. Like, that basically means that you live your entire life, everything you do, everything you see, everything you've ever seen, everything you touch, smell, anything at all, you're doing by faith.
Excellent. I love to hear you say that. I really do.
That's ridiculous.
Because I think that we both do. In a way of looking at it, we both do. It's just
that's not my definition of faith. So no,
I understand it's not your definition, but I think what you just said is a beautiful concept, and I just like the way you said it.
Yeah, but that's only a faith claim from you. So why should I believe your faith claim?
No, I don't think you have to believe my faith claim. I think the claim that you just made is one that you believe, but you choose to redefine it. And I think
but
that was the beauty in what you just said.
You're just saying that on faith.
There's a degree of faith involved, of course, like you said.
No. It's total faith, because you cannot have absolute certainty about anything, including your own existence. So your own existence is faith. You talking to me is a faith at the moment. You going out and buying a sausage roll is faith. Anything at all is faith, because you can't have 100% confidence, absolute confidence in anything. So that means there is no logical evaluations for you. There is only faith.
No, I think you're now maximizing the faith and everything, which you can go that route. But I'm saying it's involved. I'm not saying it's exclusively faith.
No, you said faith is required when you don't have 100% absolute confidence in anything.
Did I?
Yes.
I mean, I think that you said that or you were saying that I was saying that. Anyway, this is going back to to the presupposing, whatever you presuppose, whatever I presuppose. I'm saying
presuppositions.
There's a degree of faith in the beginning point, which are the presuppositions. So it's inescapable from the start that we have a starting point that involves faith, and everything carries forth from that. Now, to go to the extreme and say everything is faith is a different walk than what I'm saying.
Yeah, so when we have sort of these things in front of us, like we have empirical senses, and let's just say that we're using faith for our presuppositions, we presuppose they are true because we have them occurring to us. They happen to be experienced directly. We don't have faith. It's not based upon faith. And I realize you're using faith in a completely different way than any person who ever came about. I get that. But the problem there is that everything then comes down to a faith statement. You're basically conflating faith with any reasonable expectation.
Okay, why don't we just trade definitions of faith so that we can be clear on how we're using the word?
Yeah, so basically you're saying that you just have faith in everything.
Don't tell him what he's saying. Say what you're saying.
What do you mean, say what I'm saying? What do you
I
mean?
asked you to define your usage of the word faith, please.
My usage of the word faith is confidence in something without reasonable justification for it.
Thank you. JG?
Yeah, I think that's a simplified definition of the idea. I think I'm trying to apply it to the starting point. The presuppositions that we all have still require a degree of faith, a degree of the unknown or reliability that we can't be certain of. And that if that's our starting point, then it's carries over into everything that we conclude or everything that follows from that very starting point. That's what I'm trying to bring home.
So if I have senses and they appear to be telling me what the world is like, are you asserting I don't have reasonable justification for that presupposition?
No, I'm not.
Then how is it faith?
Because there's a faith in the starting point of that very idea. So it carries through the idea.
It carries through the idea.
Right. Whenever you say it can be dissected back or traced back to a degree of faith, you can't. It's inescapable. I don't know if you've ever read the Two Dogmas of Empiricism by Quine.
Yeah. So I think that with senses, I have a reasonable justification that I am experiencing them directly. So you've just agreed that faith is an unreasonable confidence in something, in a belief.
It can be. It can be unreasonable.
Okay,
depending on how you're using it.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
If you have blind faith in something, like we were talking about earlier, if somebody just says they're abducted by aliens, and you go, "Yeah, I believe that person. I have perfect faith in that person. So whatever they say is true, and I believe it." That's a different degree, right? Than saying, you know what, I presuppose the natural world, but for me to presuppose that, there's a degree of faith involved. It's a very different conversation.
So what kind of definition applies sometimes and not at other times? I wouldn't see that as very useful at all. You've just sort of said, okay, I've given my definition as Richard requested. You've said, okay, that's the definition. That's fine. I'm simplifying, but that's fine. And then you've said, well, sometimes that doesn't apply. So we still don't have a definition for your idea of faith, JG.
I'm using it in a way to try to understand, to try to trace back to presuppositions.
Sure. And there's some presuppositions that I would say are unnecessary and some presuppositions that are necessary. Really, with presuppositions, it's not so much faith. It's basically coming to consensual sort of axiomatic beginnings. So if I sort of go, I think that my senses are real and I'm evaluating reality, you don't have to accept that presupposition. You can reject it if you want. And there's always always with presuppositions, there is the sort of part that you know that it can be wrong. I always acknowledge with presuppositions it can be wrong. So I don't have faith that it's true. I have a reasonable belief based upon its necessity and the, experiences that I have. And you don't have to accept it. You can reject it if you want.
Yeah, and when you talk about axioms,
yeah,
what you think is self-evident is not necessarily self-evident to somebody else, right?
Correct. I mean, you don't have to agree with the axiomatic start that we're coming from. But if you reject that my senses are real and correct for a given level of accuracy, then why are we even talking?
Well, why are we talking?
Right. If you want to reject that presupposition, that's fine. But if you're rejecting that I'm hearing you right now, what are we even talking about?
All right, I'm going to ask you guys to pause for a minute. I'm really enjoying the talk and everything. It's riveting. But if you would each read this comment and give an opinion on it, and I'd like you guys to go a little bit, out on a limb and tell me if this person is a theist, an agnostic, whatever you think.
As soon as you stand on an axiom to underpin your knowledge, you stand on faith. Yeah, I wouldn't say that. All of our knowledge depends on axioms. Therefore, all of our knowledge is based on faith. Yeah, well, I disagree with the first sentence, and I'd probably say they're a theist, but I could be wrong. It could very well be an agnostic or atheist saying that.
JG, what do you think? I mean, I know this guy personally.
Yeah, I don't know them, but I think that's I would say that's probably a theist. And I agree with that. And I'm looking at the middle sentence. I'm just trying to work that out. But
well, I think they're sort of relating to, without axioms, we don't have a starting point for anything. So if you're going to get to, hey, I need reasonable evidence for this conclusion, you're going to have to start with induction. And what you're sort of doing is tearing down the very foundations of logic and reason, which, I mean, you can do that, but it's not a good way to evaluate reality. Is just say, hey, I'm going to go with whatever I have faith in. I mean, you can.
I don't think that's what I'm doing, with all due respect. I think we're talking past each other a little bit. And I would like to talk more about this, but perhaps now's not the time. I think we're talking past each other, and I'm trying to regroup the point I'm making about the presuppositions, about the idea. Because I think when I'm saying faith, I think it's triggering something in you that you want to reject. And it happens other times with certain people. I think I'm just merely trying to point out that within every starting point, you can't know.
Pause.
Even in your
please.
Yeah.
Pause, please. Okay. I'm not going to dox the guy. This person is a Los Alamos retired computer science technologies guy who argues with me against my religious faith positions on a very regular basis. But he does understand that axioms definitionally are faith positions, and all of our knowledge claims are based on those axioms, and ultimately all of our knowledge is based in faith. Now, a person can say that's not true, but it just means they don't take their philosophy very seriously. It's all that means.
Who doesn't?
Whoever says that's not true is not taking their philosophy very seriously.
Oh, I think that in philosophy, faith has a very wide range of meanings, and I don't think we're talking past one another, JJ. I think we're just using different definitions of faith. And so when I'm talking about what I use as a method and say that I don't have faith, I don't know why I would be switching to your definition, what you're claiming it is, because I'm not expecting you to switch to mine. I'm just explaining my worldview.
I think you should actually focus now on what was it, Harp's Blues, that quote that Richard just brought up and what he just said. I think that's the direction I would go into, or I would defer to that at this point, because I think he said it more eloquently what I was saying.
Yeah, but that's
I'm
your
getting
of faith.
I know I'm getting a little thrown off by the conversation. So let me take pause.
Okay, so I want to go back to something, more adherent with the intent of the stream, which was a MathPig Afterparty. And I want to give some floor space because Commander 401's been really quiet and really patient for a really long time. So if you want some floor space, Commander, just unmute and help yourself and give you a few seconds to go ahead and do that before I assume that you just fell asleep and I'm killing time to give you space and you're not unmuting. Thanks for coming by. If you come back from that bathroom break, let us know. Oh, you're back.
Right now, it's a little too involved, and I'm just going to step back till it gets a little simpler.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I'm all for that. Yeah. I think that without sort of acknowledging my definition of faith or sort of acknowledging it, I don't think I can explain why the methodology I use is what I use. Sort of. So JG seems to want to go back to say, well, I use faith and use his definition of faith, which I'm not using. So yeah, I reject that entirely.
Okay. Well, you guys should arrange a talk sometime and, try to get all that sorted out. That'd be an interesting thing to watch.
Well, it's polysemious, the word faith. There can be multiple different meanings on how people use it. But when I'm using it in relation to what my beliefs are. So for someone to sort of come in and say, well, that's not the definition of faith, it's like, well, there's multiple definitions and you can't just put your definition onto me. I'm sorry, you just can't.
Okay. So where would we leave off there?
Probably a reason for confidence that the text is talking about the planetary bodies without the predictive power of knowing things will come true in the future.
Right. Okay, so the predictive power only shows plausibility in future events because they're future events. Okay. And
right, and we're talking about I think you had an article up for uniformitarianism, which is sort of what I mentioned with everything being the same, right?
Uniformitarianism, the usually relatively safe assumption that things will continue as they have in the past. It just can't be logically shown that they will.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. So, I mean, we have a lot of evidence to think they will. They seem to. If you say, well, you can't be 100% confident, and then I would believe you. Yeah, I can't be 100% confident. Though I can be as confident as anything else, empirically that I experience.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. Okay. So, in a more classical definition of the word faith, I'll give just a off the cuff definition of how I'm using that.
Okay.
A general sense of trust in the information source person or persons that they have the ability and intent to perform a certain act that they have not yet done. And that's my faith position on prophecy. Okay. So, like someone wrote in the side chat, there is not a naturalistic, predictable situation in our solar system in its present state that would cause the ignition or begin a fusion reaction in the core of Jupiter to realize it as anything better than a failed star. And they're totally right. Current estimates, depending on where you look, something around 81 times its present mass without impact, right? Or 13 simultaneous Earths hitting it at about 200,000 miles per hour. I'm sorry, kilometers per hour.
Right.
And we don't see that kind of debris, that size, that speed, just flying through the solar system willy-nilly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
we'd be scared out of our minds. Like that would be NASA's number one job, is to get rid of that.
But we can't say it's not going to. It can't possibly happen because it is within the laws of physics. I get that. I totally get that.
Okay. And what I'm saying the story is claiming is that a class 4 Kardashev civilization, which is a minimum requirement to do what they claim that they do, having enough ability to collect materials and transport them over what in spatial terms are relatively small distances, but in like a solar system measurement term, it is an unbridgeable expanse. To bring materials those kinds of distances to terraform a planet is a brag of technology well beyond what we have. Okay.
Right.
Like there's no way we could do that right now.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'm saying class 4 or better. Not exactly
sure.
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
But you see why I'm saying class 4.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. They would be the only ones with the technology to do so, sure.
Right. So there's nothing logically impossible or stretching or defeating of physics in the existence of Kardashev class 4 civilization. Okay. And that seems to be in an internal critique what they're claiming to be. So I'm saying that kind of size of society with that kind of advancement in technology could cause a series of events in our natural physical world, taking advantage of existent chemistry, physics objects, to perform a certain series, and they would already understand what the series could be, what's plausible with the materials available, and design a story around doing something that will work there, and giving the story, and people mistaking sufficiently advanced technology for magic. Okay.
So no, I get that. I just don't find sufficient justification to believe that. But you get that, right?
I don't know why you would why I would, okay, let me put it this way. I don't know why I would expect you to feel that's justified. I don't expect that at all.
No, I get you. I get you, Richard. Do we have any idea? Does it give you any idea of why they are doing this? Maybe that's a good question.
Does it give us any idea as to why they're doing it?
Even a class 4 or even above a class 4 a civilization, that they'd be expending an incredible amount of resources to do this. Presumably, there would be some sort of goal in mind. Is it? So I was just wondering, like, do you know what the goal would be? Why this civilization would turn Jupiter into this sort of primal star and shoot off stuff?
Yeah. So what you want to look for is a cost benefit analysis, and what you hope for is the benefit is greater than the cost. And as you just pointed out, this is a really high cost thing to do.
Right. So, you know, advanced civilization, I would imagine they understand, you know, cost and benefit and, you know.
Right.
I mean, it's okay if you don't know. That's fine.
I do know. You seem to have paused in the middle of a thought, and I wanted to let you finish.
No. I'm just waiting. That's all. No problem.
Okay. All right. So the claim is you're a heck of a lot more valuable than you realize, not because of your physical resources, but because of your mental prowess.
I'm not sure. Are you sort of saying that the sort of physical makeup of me, the atoms that make me, I've got a lot more value than them sort of by themselves? I'm not sure what you're saying there, Richard. I'm sorry.
You can be much more productive in your present state and your level of consciousness to affect reality in impactful ways than if I broke you down into your base materials.
Well, sure, obviously, yeah, but I mean that I'm not sure that has anything to do with what the other civilization doing this would benefit from.
That we are so valuable, and for on multiple levels and for multiple reasons. Just like we want to reproduce right now, right? On average. And that's because of an evolutionary process that requires reproduction. And of course, anything that didn't agree with that would just die off. So everything that does exist, you know, wants to reproduce, which just, you know, it's just a necessity of rationality there. If it didn't have the desire to reproduce, it wouldn't reproduce, and then there's no reproduction.
Well, I mean, I exist and I don't have a desire to reproduce.
On average, humans do have a desire to reproduce.
Okay. No, that's fair enough. Yeah.
At 2.3% or better of the present population without increasing population, and we often increase in population. So I'd have to say that your personal opinion doesn't much matter in it.
Well, birth rates are declining, but you're probably right. Sure.
Well, you're included in the 0.3.
Yeah.
To maintain a population because you don't want to. Fine, it's fine. It's already part of the calculation. Because obviously 2 need 2 to replace, but there's a certain percentage that just will not replace, and that's about 0.3 on average. And there you go. So you're covered. Okay, so they have this speciesistic drive to continue the species. That is, we're the same species as we're the same animal.
Okay.
So they want to see, quite selfishly, I don't see there's something wrong with being selfish that way. They want to see their own kind prosper. So we have like this intrinsic value in we're the same thing, right? or a perceived intrinsic value. And then there's the claim that we are a complement to their already existent society. That is, whether you're a pauper or a king, you had experiences. Those experiences matter. That adds to the collective societal memory as a whole, and is a complement to the entire society, if that makes sense. Now, they apparently value those things so highly that they're willing to put a lot of energy into making sure that continues to happen. So there's your net cost gain.
Continues to happen. You mean sort of the group consciousness of humans is what you were talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So how does turning Jupiter into a sun and throwing stuff off into Earth accomplish that exactly?
We think right now that we're the coolest thing because we're the coolest thing we know that we can like show, right? We speculate, could there be extraterrestrial civilizations, etc. And you do some math and you go, well, yeah, there's a lot of universe out there, something like that.
Yeah.
But we can't show that it's a fact, right?
Well, you get into stuff like the Fermi paradox, right?
The Fermi paradox assumes that the alien's unintelligent. I think it's the dumbest damn thing ever.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't think it does that.
Yeah, it does, because it doesn't consider that they could just avoid us.
Well, no, the Fermi paradox sort of says the chances of there being other life is high because of, just like you said, the sheer size of the universe and all of that kind of stuff. But the chances of them being too far away to contact us is also high.
Too far away to contact us also.
Right.
Sorry, I don't know where my brain went with Fermi. Okay, never mind
okay.
that.
That's all right.
But you've corrected my memory. That's fine. I appreciate it. Okay, so yeah, there's definitely a necessity over these kinds of galactic distances, that there has to be something aside from miles per hour over distance, for time, because the times just get ridiculous.
Yeah.
There's got to be something. I'm not going to postulate what it could be, because I just really don't know. There are some theories like wormhole or folding space or whatever. I don't know, but in order for them to do what they claim they can do, they must achieve that. Yeah. What's the nearest nearest galaxy, and then it's how many hundreds of thousands or whatever millions of light years away. Yeah,
I think Andromeda. Is it Andromeda?
Andromeda, that's the right word, I think. Yeah. So it's just not attainable with the technology we're using right now. Just you ain't going to get there.
Yeah, but we're not assuming that constraint. That's no problem at all.
Right.
But why destroy Earth and presumably most humans or humans on Earth? Like, why? What's the impetus there?
That's a Christian assumption. And that assumption's based in tribalism and pride. I'm right, everyone else is wrong. That's what that's based in. So it's the pride position. That pride position can't be justified by the text. The text actually has some calculable numbers at the end of the story saying those who stubbornly hang around, I'm colloquially paraphrasing, those who stubbornly hang around when they already should have left by now are 70,000 folks.
Okay.
That's 70,000 out of 8 billion ish.
Yeah.
If it happened today, it's just over 8 billion. Okay.
So sorry, I just want to clarify. So the rapture's us going with the the humans that sort of come to Earth,
The extraterrestrial
and take us away.
humans.
Yeah, extraterrestrial humans, right? So why not just pick us up? Why destroy any humans at all?
Well, they do not voluntarily destroy any human at all. They don't. In fact, they go through a very long, arduous process, like a 7-step series that they said they were going to do at a certain magnitude in a certain order that you'll see. And then everybody gets to like meet an actual angel. And then everybody gets to like, they experience all of this stuff firsthand for a period up to just under 7 years of it. Okay. And of course, everyone's invited to become part of that larger society anytime they choose. Anytime, just go, you know what, I get it. And don't be a liar about it. Just tell what you think's going on here and take it. And everybody's invited to take it all the time, 24/7, 365. Okay.
Well, I'm a little confused.
Just short of 7 years.
I thought that they sort of had mountains coming down that you said were asteroids or the moons colliding or something like that, and that Yellowstone would erupt.
Yeah, there's some loss of life in a volcanic eruption if people live close by. That's a fact of reality. Okay.
But wouldn't the extraterrestrial humans have caused that by turning Jupiter into Earth? Oh, okay.
No.
That's just happening by itself.
No, it actually says what causes those kinds of large seismic events, and science has recently proven it. That that Sol, which is literally the sun,
Sol
has an evil spirit in it, and that evil spirit comes out. That is, a coronal mass ejection, solar ejecta, which have mass and their own gravitational field and real physical impact, especially onto the magnetosphere. And it's actually most effective when the magnetosphere is weak, especially if the poles are flipping, to put that energy directly into the planet and, knock some stuff loose that, wouldn't knock loose on its own. Things like, statements like Yellowstone could go off in 10,000 years, 2 weeks from now.
Could be tomorrow. Yeah, we don't know.
Could be tomorrow, but it needs something to make it happen. It's just not doing it on its own.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I don't know enough about it, I must admit. But yeah, presumably it would.
It's not a perfect assertion. It's kind of an overgeneralization with not near enough definition of what Dr. Lowenstern says about Yellowstone, and he's the leading dude right now.
Yeah. So why? But that sort of the Yellowstone. I get you. That's from ejecta coming from the sun. Why change the mass of Jupiter at all? What's that trying to accomplish?
There's no. Everyone keeps asking me that. Like it just happens naturally. Like, it just got bigger and soaked up a bunch of crap. I said intelligent interference from a class 4 Kardashev civilization. That they're not going to throw a bunch of rocks at it. They're not monkeys.
No, I get you. But why do it at all? Like, what are they trying to accomplish with doing it?
But the solar system is what it was, right? And then you terraform this one little planet that'll work. Right. Then you use the existing objects and you find a creative way to use them in a certain order so that you can say, okay, I'm going to make this, and this happen in a certain order. Right. So you develop this plan, you write that down as a story, you give it to them. They got the story, colorful story. They're going to remember it just because the human brain's going to do that. Like how many little freckled faced, red haired kids don't go, yay, David. So they're going to remember the story. And then when it happens in reality, they go, oh, geez, it's not a history lesson. Look, it just happened. And look at all this big stuff that we didn't do because we couldn't do it. It's just too big, and that shows it's not us. It's not us, some religious zealot sect fooling you, you know, because that's the last thing you want is people think people on this earth did it, because, well, then people on this earth are God, and that's going to ruin the whole thing. So you can't have it like that. But you want to get people's attention, and you want to go, hey, look, you're plummeting into an ice age, because you know that red sun, that ain't going to grow you no plants, because there's just too much dirt in the sky. Okay, and I know you guys did a lot of prep work for stuff like that, but your prep work's only going to last so long, and actually, you know, a really high percentage of you guys, just like the last few times this happened, you ain't going to make it. Okay.
So by red sun, which sun are you talking about?
Our sun would appear red if there's enough junk in the sky.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I thought you meant the classification.
It wasn't real clear.
Okay. No, that's okay. That's okay. I guess, you know, it's been a while. I must admit, it's been a fascinating conversation, Richard. I've really enjoyed it. But I still don't get why such an intelligent and amazing sort of extraterrestrial humans would interfere with a gas giant to change its properties, to show us that they're capable of doing so. I'm not sure I understand it, but that's okay. I don't need to.
The whole solar system is negligible. It's throwaway. There's so many of them all over the place that preserving or destroying one is really, in the big picture, it's inconsequential. And we're on this tiny planet around this tiny star with this tiny solar system. You start looking at the Milky Way galaxy, you could just pass over this whole thing and ignore it, just like not even notice it's there, you know?
Yeah, but it would still take resources. And I think that a civilization that advanced wouldn't do it for reasons, or I would hope they wouldn't do it for reasons of just sort of showing off or trying to convince people of something.
Yeah, they're just trying to convince us of something. That's it.
Yeah, it just seems weird to me, because there's far easier ways than to change the properties of a gas giant and reignite a sun than
I don't know if it's like personal preference, you know, if they're being like elaborate on purpose.
Oh, maybe. You know? I mean, I couldn't say.
Extra fancy just for fun. Could be.
I suppose so. Yeah, I suppose so. If their reasons is just pure, you know, sort of, you know, let's do this because we can, then sure, I guess so. I mean, who knows how? Obviously, we're not that civilization, so we don't know how their minds would work. It seems odd to me from sort of my perspective, my worldview, because I guess if I would like to think if I was that intelligent and have that level of technology, there's all kinds of different things I could do without sort of reigniting a sun, which seems pretty hard to do. But thank you so much, Richard. I'm gonna go because it's like way past when I expected to leave.
It's like mid-morning for you or something, right?
Yeah, it's 11:45, and
wow.
Yeah, so it's midday basically. No, don't be sorry. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. I didn't have anything on this morning. I do have some stuff. I have to go out to uni this afternoon. But it's been really cool, Richard. And I must admit, I was going to email you because I know I promised another kind of interview where you get to grill me.
Well, you've done it now.
Well, I mean, yeah, but you haven't really grilled me over. I mean, I offer a lot of perspectives on my own worldview just from sort of explaining where I'm coming from. But it's been really good to talk to you again. It's been great. Do you mind if I put this up on my channel as well? I think it's really fascinating.
No.
Oh, thank you. I'll certainly credit you and provide a link to your channel. That's not a problem.
I have a distinctive beard. You're gonna have trouble not crediting me a little bit. Like everybody's gonna go, "Oh, that's that Richard guy."
No, that's fine. I have no problem with that whatsoever. It's just been a really good conversation. So I really want to, show people the second one because people were really interested in the first conversation. It was really cool.
I want to say, for people who are trying to understand a very, very foreign view of justification of the reality they experience, and minds coming from very different angles. I think you and JG have done a great job of doing what you can to be cordial and considerate of the other person. And I want to think that I made an obvious attempt in that direction. Fail or succeed, at least there was an effort there.
Yeah, and I don't expect anybody to take on my definition of faith, but I certainly will apply it when talking about myself and my beliefs. But I get where he's coming from. It's just I just cannot use it in that way because my entire structure is built upon certain things. But that's okay. That's all right. It's just a definitional. Look, I must admit, like, once I got asked by somebody to debate, and he wanted a pre-debate before that debate to argue about the definition of a word. I joke you not, right?
Okay.
So we wanted 2 debates, the first one on the definition of the word, and then the second debate to actually debate it. It was ridiculous. Yeah. It was just like, why would anybody watch that? It would be the most frustrating thing to participate in. It's just terrible. So
I think Danny of Phi Talk would watch that.
That's true. That's actually true. I don't know. I have no idea. I think he would find it absolutely boring. But never mind. But thanks so much, Richard. It's been great to be on, man. And
thank you.
Great after show. Good fun and good conversation. Thank you so much, everybody. I'm gonna go, but I will catch up with you soon. We'll hang out at MathPigs or something.
I want that.
All right, buddy. You take care.
Hey, take care, Mark.
See you, JG.
It's good talking to you. Yeah, I've got to get out of here too, Richard, but I appreciate the time and the conversation. I'm sure I'll talk to you again in the near future.
That's pretty dependable. Yeah, JJ.
All right. Grace and peace to you. Take care.
Peace. Do we even still have a Sammy? Sammer. 420 atheist. Come in, 420 atheist. Oh, I don't like kicking people, but let's see. It's still relatively early for me personally, and for some humans on this planet. You're funny, stripping for Jesus. I'm going to fail to remember everyone that I saw. Okay. Now that's not personal. It's just a lot of stuff going on up there. Most of it is a distraction, and you're real, but my brain can't always like actually sort that out. So thank you very much, 420 Atheist, Mark Reed, JG, MathPig, Commander 401, Stripping for Jesus, Harple Blues. Oh, see, that's where I'm about running out. I'm going to cheat. Ox, of course, Hillary's emails, B.S. Lewis. B.S. Lewis still in the sarcastic stage in our relationship, which is fine. Carol the atheist. I understand the sarcastic stage. Nanalu. Oh, Mac the human. Yeah, you came by, didn't you? Uncle Beck. Thank you all very much, theoretically. And to anyone who might watch this in the future, it really is part of the necessary belief system to what I think these ancient religions are telling, is that it doesn't matter if you call it Valhalla, Summerland, heaven, any of those terms. that we're all caterpillar, that we're all going to be great friends in the future with unfortunately not 100%, but very, very, very close to 100% of the people that we like to see, and some you wouldn't like to see, restored to life in a body that effectively does not age, in a utopian society where there is no, where we've eliminated and we maintain the elimination of everything you right now hate, like prejudice and oppression and disabling body functions, loss of limbs, backaches that don't go away, all the things that really drive us mad. So I look forward to the day that we're all great friends. And tell you what, if I am delusional, I'd rather know the truth, but on some levels, I want to keep that possibility of future you alive, at least in my heart. And that you'll just have to accept that as a flaw in me. Commander 401 came back in. And Commander, peace and respect. You came
How
in
you
just in the
doing?
nick of time, you know.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, just wanted to say hi. I would have had to have been in on the entire thing before then, and I was watching. Well, there's a new network being launched, and they basically put out a feeler for anybody who wants to contribute. Blah blah blah. We're looking for creators, and I had to see what they were doing, and I made an attempt to contact them. I don't know if it will tell them about the shills and all.
Wait. You're harming my reality. Are you saying you have a life outside of my experience with you?
I just got a job recently, too. Oh, yeah, I go on the shills. I'm a member.
My made up people just surprise me all the time.
Cute.
I'm not actually a solipsist, but I think it's a funny idea. Me and Harple Blues kid about that all the time. I like to ask him, yeah, okay, you're the only mind, that's fine, and I don't exist, unless you in that moment want me to, but I have to ask why you're so self-punishing, why I come and torture you by saying things like what I'm saying right now. Like, you're a sick dude.
Oh, you weren't torturing me.
No, him. Harple Blues. When I say things like you're torturing yourself with my existence, why do you do that? You're like, what is it, sadist or masochist, whichever one, likes the pain. I can't keep that straight. Don't care to.
Well, I think everyone there this evening just liked the debate.
Yeah. Well, I want to, and I kind of respect, if you guys don't know who Jamie Russell is, as long as you don't assume that he agrees with everyone on his channel, because it's not an echo chamber. He'll let people on he completely disagrees with, and then let them speak their entire mind about a topic. Yeah, he will. I respect that. I want to be more like that. So,
I remember, God, what was it? The guy who you muted last time I was here. Trying to remember. Religious fundy. He typed in the chat, canceling, blah 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 blah, and then he.
Yeah. What he
You know, a
neglects
lot
to
of
comment in that, Commander, is he will agitate and agitate and agitate quite on
oh yeah,
purpose until you do that, and then he'll try to claim victim status.
that's what actually I was going to you know, because he's probably going to see this, and I just wanted to address his claiming of canceling by bringing up
Right.
someone who used to be senator in Pennsylvania. The
Yeah, this
man
is
was
not.
Bob Casey.
Yeah,
He
this is
agreed
not a
with you.
political channel. We just don't even do that here. It's not my thing. Don't know anything about it.
That would, it's not really political. In I was just gonna say that this person agreed with you on those issues that you two agreed with, but he disagreed with you on everything else, Jill. And he was told he couldn't come to the Value Voter Summit anymore. You guys cancel a lot of people, you know. I'm sorry
Yeah.
if I shouldn't have brought that in.
No, it's okay. But next time, don't give him a shill by mentioning his name. People will go to, look for him.
Oh.
Yeah, don't give him free rent. Don't give him no free rent. He doesn't deserve that.
No, he's a professional, constant agitator. Don't go and look up.
Right.
It's better to find some people who can, like you and Beast of the Mark. You guys disagreed on a lot, but you managed to get along and have politeness and maybe you could figure out some other naturalistic ideas that could deliver the prophecies. Like there's this I'm forgetting the name of the star. It's about to go GRB, gamma ray burst. It's pointed roughly towards the Earth. No one knows exactly whether or not it's aimed close enough, but you get a large dose of gamma rays to the atmosphere. It breaks up the diatomic, I hope I'm getting that right. In other words, the N2, it recombines to a bunch of nitrous oxide and nitrous pentoxide and it basically creates a red fog, which blots out the sun.
Yeah.
You could have an asteroid come hit, obviously that's going to shake a volcano.
Right.
It wasn't as big a stretch as the ETs come and deliver probably a star's worth of energy into Jupiter to make it become a star. And I do appreciate you. I appreciate where you're coming from.
I gotta say, Commander, I can't, from my point of view, say that I understand why they would do it exactly that way, and should I, or should I just discount, practicality, so I really can't say something like that. So, they say they're conservationists, right? But conserving what? Conserving everything always? Well, sometimes in conservation, you got to, sacrifice a little bit of this to keep some of that. Sometimes it's a trade-off. So maybe the most practical thing is to dump, I don't know how to say a number that big, volts of electricity into, a big, three-dimensional swimming pool of liquid metallic hydrogen. Maybe that's the way to go. I don't know.
All I know is if there is a God, right? God is out there, but yet somehow omnipresent.
Oh, I don't think you're going to be able to justify that from any religion anywhere on the planet, and only through practitioners.
Well, I mean, you're arguing that God is basically the civilization, right?
No. I'm claiming
I don't
that
understand what you're claiming entirely.
Let me be clear. It's okay. I mean, that's how minds are, and that's why conversations, start out general and get more and more defined as they go on. It's because we're trying to understand each other. It's perfectly acceptable. What I'm asserting is that the biblical Yahweh, not to be conflated with the Father or the Son or the Holy Ghost, right, is a Constitution, Bill of Rights, all of the necessary changes to the Constitution and Bill of Rights, all the amendments, all that stuff for a society that absolutely works. Not this crap we put up with, where there's like limited justice and limited equity and limited equality. Not like that. It actually works. That it's that they're referred to as spirits, meaning an immaterial construct. It's not a physical thing, because ideas are not physical. You can write them on paper and represent them. That's physical. The idea itself, not, it doesn't have a weight and a mass. It's not a thing you hold in your hand. And that's the Old Testament, New Testament description of Yahweh, is that Yahweh is an abbreviation that refers to all of that, and that's can't be encapsulated. It's not something that is so simple that a singular mind is going to be able to calculate all of that all the way out in its depth, breadth, and height. It's just too much. So it takes a collective to understand that fully and keep all that and counsel each other in that, so that they're all adherent. It takes a society to do that. Because like if I say I'm a humanitarian, well, in order to be a humanitarian, I have to be, considerate of human beings, and I'm going to have to use resources, and those resources take time and effort to build, which indicates there has to be some level of strength. That strength has to be maintained. In order to maintain that strength, I have to meet dietary needs, rest needs, exercise needs. I mean, just humanitarian effort from one person has a really long list of demands. And so when Yahweh makes demands, that's what it means. That if you're going to be adherent to Yahweh, you got to do a really big list of stuff.
I'm listening. I'm just, I have the similar yet completely similar view of, in terms of the ultimate end goal for society, which is that perfect world.
Right.
And a big God, but a little bit more supernatural and traditional, where there's this desire for all humanity to live in love and peace with each other, and human beings right now are incapable of doing it.
Right.
And it seems like there are people who go out of their way just to agitate and stop a cohesive system.
Yeah, and that's why it doesn't happen. Because you could be super loving and really get other people and be completely genuine, and you can do everything within your power to show others that's the right thing to do and to treat others in that way, on a personal level. And that would be absolutely beautiful of you. But there's someone who is going to be willing to say, even if they believe all that, is going to be willing to sell out for monetary gain, personal control of other people, human energy control, things like that. So in order for it to actually work, you got to get 100% agreement for everyone to do it.
That's not going to happen anytime soon. I mean, I have met
That's the
people
problem.
who would agree with me
Right.
until they found out I agreed with them, and then they would change their minds. And it was me that caused them to change their minds simply by agreeing with them. Or might I put it a different way? I worked as a machinist for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And people would tell me that their jobs and my jobs needed to go overseas. And then I would look at them and I'd be like, really? Your job needs to go overseas? And I knew what they were telling me was just their, Mitt Romney was running for president at the time and he was king of Bane. But you look at,
was
they
what?
have
I'm sorry, he was
King
what?
King of Bane Capital, a company that basically took a certain portion of their portfolio, not all of it, not enough to get the creditors to never lend them money again, and completely dismantled, destroyed indebted subsidiaries, took the money, walked off, and did a lot of outsourcing too.
Mm.
And so at that time, it was like all the people who are yelling, "Yay, Trump, because he wants my blue collar factory job back." They would argue against protectionism all day long until they found someone who, let me just say, I think it was race based, that they would rather not have a job than have people who didn't look like them have the same kind. And you know how the Trump supporters like, yay, Trump is going to get our factory jobs back and all that. But when Obama was president, they would argue that their own jobs needed to go overseas. And that's stupid, arguing for your own self-destruction. So they agreed, but they couldn't agree with me because I was not in their tribe.
Oh, it's a prejudice.
I'm not in your tribe, so even if I'm right, you cannot agree with me. That's what I kind of meant. And you knew deep down they agreed with you. When they didn't think you were listening, they would talk amongst each other, and you'd find out, yeah, they agreed with you. They just never let you know it.
Yeah, these are the reasons I don't get into politics.
But I'm just using that as an example of people will disagree with each other.
Fair enough.
Or
I can see people doing that.
Just because you're in a different tribe.
Yeah. That's actually a big part of the overall problem, why we don't do what we know we should and are capable of doing it. I mean, there's so much wealth in the wealthy. And when I say wealthy, I mean like persons on this planet like me, who do not choose to share a little bit of their excess, not very much, very, very small percentage of their excess, with those who are lacking. Okay. That we could, if we just decided to do that, say something like 2% of my total income, I just passed to somebody who needed and expecting nothing in return, we would all feed everybody.
There is enough food on earth to feed everyone. It's just not distributed right, and we throw most of it in the trash here in America, actually.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Stuff like that. Okay. But we can't get agreement to do it. You know? And part of the reason we can't get agreement to do it is because we're all aware now, you know, like we got this world map. We got a representation in three-dimensional little globe ball thingy. And we go, wow, you know, this is not infinite in surface area. It's got a limit. So as soon as we perceive a limit, we go, well, there's only so much there. Then we start hoarding. And we hoard much more than we will ever need. And apparently, the better you are at hoarding and depriving others because of your fear, the more successful you are.
At some point, then it just becomes a number, it becomes a game, and the wealth is, in fact, meaningless. There are people, I can't believe it, but Elon Musk is going to prove that you really can piss away. He's actually going through about $10 billion a month. And I didn't think that was possible for any one person to burn through. You needed governments to do that. But
no.
But it's like a number, a score in a video game. At some point, it becomes meaningless to you.
I suppose it would.
And I often figured, okay, let's say I won $1 billion lottery. I would actually find it hard to piss through that much money. Probably in order to keep my humanity intact, just keep a few million. And I've never seen that money before, never see it again. And just find something good to do with it. Because if I couldn't live off a few million for the rest of my life, what the hell kind of. Well, I know someone can piss that away, but
yeah, you can spend more than that, but you'd have to be irresponsible and careless. And if you just maintain your present level of, theory of responsibility, then you just wouldn't do that.
You could live very comfortably in a really nice house with a pool and get a reasonable car every 5 years and never work a day in your life on $10 million.
Oh yeah, that's not even difficult. You could actually do that off the interest of $10 million. Because and 20 years ago standards. So I'm taking like a long-term view of it. I used to study this stuff because I was all about money, because I was very materialistic. I used to study personal finance because I thought it would be really important to me later. That if you invest like $1 million at one time, then you're going to get a rate something between 13 and 15%. And of course, you say, well, what's 10% of $1 million? And you get to take that off the top every year, and you never did touch the principal. In fact, you left a margin for it to grow bigger. And how much?
I could live on $100,000 a year.
Yeah, that's super easy. Like I made 105 one year. It was the most money I ever made. I wasted. Well, waste is a relative term. I bought tools that I wanted, and a lot of them, like a lot of them that year.
Oh, I used to make $60,000 a year for almost a decade, and I had a machine shop in the garage. And then, shit happened, and I wish that I had that money. Now I'm working now, so I'm
But
gonna hit
what you
that
didn't do
again.
is go and buy the biggest house you could and make yourself house poor. You didn't do that. You didn't go buy the most expensive car that they'd barely let you get a loan for and make yourself car poor. You didn't do that.
I bought a machine shop and
Well, I feel you. that year, I bought a 24-foot 4-compartment horse trailer and with cowboy compartment, gutted it out because it had horses in it. Gutted it out, refloored it, put tool benches in it, and filled it with tools. That's what I did. And one of them was a 600-pound mini millwright lathe. That's what it was. That was one of them.
that was I wanted to save for one of the way I did it. I tried to do it piecemeal on the cheap,
Yeah.
and it took me a while to get everything together, and I had all the projects in the world, and then the house fire took the machine shop.
Yeah.
And luckily, the insurance company still paid out for the rest of the house.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they did. Luckily, the furnace, the heat treat furnace for the sapphires was not plugged in. It did work. There was aluminum wires actually in the walls. The people who sold us the house had their cousin inspect it. So the aluminum wires set fire to the house. And I had just gotten the heat treat furnace up to about 1800 C a week before. And when you can get sapphires up to that temperature, all the strontium tungstate crystals that make the star sapphire what it is dissolve in the aluminum oxide. If you control the amount of oxygen just right, you can lighten the sapphire. So you turn it clear and you can heal all the cracks in it.
No kidding.
So you can take a piece of shit
and make it valuable.
Say, and you can take a sapphire that might be $1 a pound and turn it into something that might be $4 to $40 a carat, depending upon how good a job you do.
Mm-hmm.
Or something even better and make it. And that's before you cut it.
Right.
I'm going to wind up saving some money and trying to leave cuckoo nutball land.
Okay. Don't mean to complain about it. I've been sick for a little less than or a little more than half a week.
Oh, completely understood. You want to call it, because if you want to call it, that's okay, because I got to get up at 6 a.m.
But I want to justify why I'm calling it, and the reason isn't that I'm not enjoying the talk. That's not it. It's just my body's exhausted.
It's all right, because I understand. I didn't even pick up on that you were sick until you started coughing a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, people get sick, and I'm healthier than a bunch of folks, and this won't hurt me as bad as it would a lot of people. So, but still get tired. So,
have a good night,
Commander. Thanks for coming back in. I appreciate you a lot. Peace and respect to you. And
peace and respect to you.
See yourself out. I just don't like to do that. And Sammy is still asleep, and rest well, my friend. Rest well, my brother. Again, good night, all.